Chapter 400, Eerie Gu Yundong's Nvel. They were still pointing at the house with disdain on their faces. Tong Shuitao only heard their conversation when she got closer. I knew it. This young lady from the Gu family must have eloped with that wolf cub. That's right. Otherwise, why would that wolf cub propose marriage as soon as she returned? Gu Yundong hasn't reached adulthood yet, right? Why is she in such a hurry? Is she pregnant? When she said this, the people around her widened their eyes. It couldn't be, right? Tong Shuitao was furious. You gossipy old women, I'll tear your mouths apart. As she spoke, she pounced on the person who had spread the most rumors. The few of them immediately turned their heads and retreated. As they retreated, they saw Gu Yundong standing at the back and looking at them coldly. Gu Yundong was smiling, but this smile reminded them of the day when she had ruthlessly whipped Hu Liang with the sole of her shoe. All of them immediately felt their faces hurt. Miss Gu, we're just spouting nonsense. Don't take it to heart. That's right. We're just watching the show. We're leaving now. We won't disturb you anymore. Gu Yundong looked at them one by one. They were still those people. Weren't they the gossipy old women that Aunt Ku had memorized? Now they were bold enough to come to her door. Gossip gave people courage? I'm just curious. Since you're afraid of me and know that Shao Qingyuan is a wolf cub who doesn't show any mercy, how dare you talk behind our backs and ruin our reputation? Why? Aren't you afraid that the two of us will join forces to take revenge? The faces of those old women instantly turned pale. The person who was grabbed by Tong Shuitao that was about to tear her mouth apart forgot to resist. The corners of her mouth were fiercely pulled open and almost cracked. Gu Yundong glanced at them again and said meaningfully, I hope you won't regret it. With that, she strode through the door. The few old women's bodies were a little weak. She won't really cause us trouble, will she? Let's go, let's hurry home. The door was cleared in an instant. Tong Shuitao looked outside and finally reported to Gu Yundong in satisfaction, they're all gone. Miss is indeed impressive. You scared them so much that they didn't even dare to fart. Gu Yundong felt that not only did Tong Shuitao have to learn martial arts, but she also had to learn how to read. This flattery made her feel good. She walked inside. Before she reached the central room, she heard an unfamiliar voice. Gu Yundong paused for a moment before continuing forward. When she got closer, she realized that the person who spoke was dressed like a matchmaker. She was counting Shao Qingyuan's merits. When she saw Gu Yundong, her eyes lit up. Oh, she's indeed a good-looking girl. No wonder young Master Shao values her so much. Gu Yundong pursed her lips. At Aunt Ke's signal, she shyly walked to the back and sat down. Shao Qingyuan was also there, but his clothes looked wet. There were 2 geese beside his feet. Just as she was feeling puzzled, Dong Xilan whispered in her ear, Qingyuan heard that it's best to bring 2 wild geese to propose a marriage. It's for good luck. He went to catch wild geese overnight. His clothes were wet, but he didn't have time to change. The geese rested by the water. It was unknown where Shao Qingyuan was squatting and waiting for them, but he looked a little disheveled. She glanced at the matchmaker who was chatting happily with Aunt Ku and gave Shao Qingyuan a look before silently leaving the central room. Not long after, Shao Qingyuan also came out to the backyard. Gu Yundong pinched his sleeve, and Shao Qingyuan held her hand. Gu Yundong was speechless. She just wanted to know how wet his clothes were. She did not want to hold his hand. She glared at him. Hurry up and go back and change your clothes. I can wring water out of it. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold? I'll leave after we've settled it. There are a lot of things to discuss here. I don't know when they'll be done. Hurry up and go back to change. But, you said you'd listen to me. Shao Qingyuan immediately shut up and nodded. Then I'll go back first. Gu Yundong stood under the corridor and watched him walk out of the Gu house. Only then was she satisfied. She was about to return to the central room when she saw an unexpected person appear at the door. Chapter 401, An Errand Boy's Novel. CM Gu Yundong walked forward and asked with a smile, "Uncle Jiang, what's the matter?" When Jiang Yongkang saw her, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I passed by the river just now and saw your mother sprained her ankle. There was a lady supporting her, but she looked like she couldn't walk steadily, so she asked me to come to your house to inform you." Gu Yundong hurried out. "Thank you for coming to tell me." Jiang Yongkang led the way. "It's nothing. No matter who it is, they will help. It's just that I'm a man and can't support your mother. I can only help run errands." As he spoke, they saw Shen Sitian and Madame Yang walking over carefully. Shen Sitian had come to the river to wash clothes. She was now living with the Gu family. Although Gu Yundong had taken good care of her, she did her own things. Sometimes, she would help the Gu family with some work. As for Madame Yang, she was used to doing chores in the past. Although there were already servants at home now and she didn't have to wake up early and work late at night, she couldn't change her habits in a short time. If she didn't do something, she would feel at a loss. Gu Yundong did not hold her back. If she wanted to cook, she could cook. If she wanted to wash clothes, she could wash them. If she wanted to play with puzzles, she could play. She could also sleep or rest as long as she was happy. Today, she saw that Shen Sitian was going to wash clothes, so she carried a small basket out. There were only 2 old clothes that she had found. Shen Sitian took care of her and coaxed her to sit on a rock to chat with her. She was fine at first. Unexpectedly, when she was about to stand up after washing her clothes, she almost fell. Madame Yang panicked and immediately rushed up to help her. However, while Shen Sitian was safe and sound, Madame Yang sprained her ankle. This place was close to the foot of the mountain, and the girls and women in the village rarely washed here. Shen Sitian did not see anyone, so she helped Madame Yang back. However, she was thin and weak, so it was especially difficult for her to walk. Fortunately, Jiang Yongkang saw them and went to the Gu family to call for help. When Gu Yundong came over, she squatted down and carried Madame Yang on his back. Jiang Yongkang was surprised. "Miss Gu is so strong." Gu Yundong smiled. "I've trained." Although she was not as strong as Tong Shuetao, it was not a problem for her to carry Madame Yang. Shen Sitian stood at the side and supported her. Seeing this, Jiang Yongkang said, "How about this? I'll make another trip and find the doctor." Before Gu Yundong could reject him, he had already left. She could only carry Madame Yang home first. The matchmaker had already left, and Shao Qingyuan had also changed his clothes. Seeing Madame Yang being carried back, the family surrounded her nervously. Fortunately, Jiang Yongkang quickly brought the village doctor over. Although this doctor was not as good as the county doctor, he was still quite good at treating physical injuries. The moment he arrived, he asked about Madame Yang's pain. When Aunt Ku saw Jiang Yongkang standing at the side, she was stunned. While Madame Yang was talking, she pulled Gu Yundong aside and asked, "What's going on? Why is he here?" "Uncle Jiang ran over to inform me that my mother sprained her ankle. Later, he sent for the doctor." Aunt Ku nodded and walked back with Gu Yundong. Unexpectedly, she heard Jiang Yongkang comfort Madame Yang. "Bear with it. It won't hurt." However, Madame Yang kept shaking her head and refused to let the doctor touch her feet. When she saw Gu Yundong coming over, she seemed to have found her backbone and reached out to hug her. She stretched out her trembling feet for the doctor to treat her. Jiang Yongkang. Chapter 402, Closing the Workshop's Novel. CM As long as Gu Yundong was by her side, Madame Yang was not afraid of pain. During the treatment, she did not even cry out. She only hugged Gu Yundong's waist with extra strength. After the doctor left, Tong Shuetao carried Madame Yang back to her room to rest. Only then did Gu Yundong express her gratitude to Jiang Yongkang. Jiang Yongkang waved his hand. "It's just running around. It's not worth the thanks. Since there's nothing else, I'll leave. Gu Yundong asked him to stay for tea, but he rejected her. As soon as he left, Entku pulled Gu Yundong to talk about the outcome of the matchmaker's conversation. Since both parties were interested, they should use their birth dates to calculate and see if they were suitable. There was no need for Gu Yundong to worry about the rest. Entku felt that she was not her biological mother after all, so she had to explain every step to her. Gu Yundong gave her the date of birth and went back to work. The sugarcane was gone, and it was almost time for the workshop to close. On the last day, Gu Yundong went to the Lu family's courtyard. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw that the courtyard had been tidied up and that the villagers were extremely reluctant to leave. It's been hard on everyone for the past few months. Besides your salary in the last month, you will be given an additional 100 copper coins as a reward. Everyone, rest well. When everyone heard that there was a bonus of 100 copper coins, they instantly came back to their senses with faint excitement on their faces. There's one more thing. I've told everyone last time that the workshop here has stopped. The new workshop will start work again in a few days, but this time, the workshop will recruit long-term workers. Have you thought about it when you go back? Wang Xuanzi was the first to respond. I'll do it. In any case, his family only had 2 acres of land and did not grow much crops. His wife could completely handle it alone. Before he worked in the Gu family, he had been looking for jobs for more than half a year. However, not only could he not find good work, but his salary was also low. He also had to spend money on food and accommodation outside. Wang Xuanzi felt that there was no better job than working in the Gu family. It was close to home, and he could help if anything occurred to his family. Moreover, the salary was high and stable. Most importantly, he had only been working in the Gu family for a few months, and his family had already eaten meat 3 to 4 times. His wife and children looked much better. Su Huar also raised her hand anxiously. Me too. I'll do it too. After Su Huar got married, she was originally cooking, washing clothes, and taking care of the children at home. Occasionally, she had to go to the fields. Every day, she was so busy that her feet did not touch the ground, but she was still despised by her mother-in-law, who said that she was lazy all day and did not serve the man well. Su Huar felt wronged. She was not the only one who came to the Gu family's recruitment that day. Her sister-in-law was also there. She did not have much hope at that time. She did not expect that she would be chosen instead of her sister-in-law. From then on, her status in the family rose steadily. Her mother-in-law's expression improved, and her sister-in-law stopped being sarcastic. When she returned, not only did she not have to serve her husband, but her husband also gave her foot wash. This treatment had never happened before. Su Huar understood how important this job in the Gu family was to her. It didn't matter how much the salary was. Anyway, the family didn't split up. She had to hand over the monthly earnings to her mother-in-law. However, the feeling of having a say at home was completely different. Sometimes, the Gu family would even give them some food as a reward. She could bring it back and keep it. Therefore, when the Gu family said that they wanted to recruit long-term workers, Su Huar accepted without even thinking about it. Not only her, but the others also agreed. Even if they were paid less, they still wanted to stay. However, they did not expect that the treatment of the long-term workers would also make them excited. Chapter 403, The Gu family is recruiting long-term workers. Sinvel. CM Gu Yundong counted, and in the end, 12 people agreed to stay. After all, long-term workers were different from short-term workers. They signed long-term contracts and had many restrictions. If you suddenly quit midway, the boss could sue you. These people had a lot of work to do at home, so they had no choice. The Lu family had originally rented the courtyard to Gu Yundong as a temporary workshop. The 3 of them worked here as temporary workers. Now that they were going to sign a long-term contract, only the couple agreed. As for Father Lu, firstly, he was old, and secondly, there was other work at home. Someone had to do it. Gu Yundong had an idea of what to do. She said, since you've decided, well, sign a contract tomorrow. The salary will still be 500 copper coins at the beginning, but there will be 3 days of vacation every month. Well, start working at 7 in the morning, rest for 2 hours at noon, and stop at 5 in the evening. If there's anything at home or if you're not feeling well, you can take leave, but your salary will be deducted for a day. She explained some of the rules of the long-term workers first to avoid any controversy in the future. However, such conditions were enough to make these people excited and happy. Even the villagers who originally did not plan to sign long-term jobs were filled with envy and eagerness. However, they could not afford to leave their homes and could only feel regretful. Even so, they visited Gu Yundong afterwards, thinking that she could still look for them if she had short-term jobs one day. Gu Yundong agreed. She was very satisfied that no one had slacked off during this period of time. Once the matter was settled, Gu Yundong gave everyone their wages. Every month, on this day, everyone's eyes would light up, especially in the last month. Gu Yundong promised to give them an extra 100 copper coins. After settling the wages and coming out of the Lu family's courtyard, she looked up at the sky and heaved a sigh of relief. Big Chen had already gone to other villages to collect fruits. Eldest Tong and Lu Wei, who had joined in the fun, followed him. Gu Yundong also did not understand why Lu Wei was so enthusiastic about her business even though he did not care about his own business. No wonder old Master Lu wanted to throw him away every time he mentioned him. Shao Qingyuan also invited the escort from the Jiang family's bodyguard agency over. The guy was originally an escort who guided others in martial arts. He could be considered very experienced. After the escort came, he started training Mao and the others the next day. Tong Shuetao also woke up early every day and ran to the Shao family. Shao Qingyuan even bought an old woman to help wash clothes and cook. However, he still came to the Gu house to eat every day. It was as if he could eat 2 more bowls of rice just by looking at Gu Yundong. The new workshop could already be used. Gu Yundong started to recruit people again. When this news came out, many people, be they from Yongfu village, Xianbei village, or the Song family village, came after hearing it. Not only did the Gu family's workshop have a high salary, but they also gave out things during the new year. Occasionally, there would be bonuses. These things had long been spread by the dozen or so short-term workers from before. Everyone who was related to Yongfu village knew that they worked well in the Gu family. As a result, many people came. Gu Yundong was shocked when she opened the door in the morning. She only planned to recruit 30 people this time. Everything had to be done slowly. After all, she did not know the fruit production here. If she recruited too many people but did not have much work, wouldn't she suffer a loss? Hence, she told everyone the number of people she needed and told them to be mentally prepared. She did not want too many people. Then, she got everyone to line up. The person sitting at the desk taking notes was the second son of the Tong family, Tong, and previously, this person was the fastest and most diligent when he learned how to read. Now that a few months had passed, he could recognize the basic words. Chapter 404, Why Don't You Want Me? Box Novel. CM Gu Yundong intended to train Tong and to be the manager of the workshop. This time, she might as well let him record everything during the recruitment. Tong'an was very nervous. He had always been the type to work silently. He did not expect his boss to value him so much. Now that he was holding the brush, he had to restrain himself with all his might to not tremble. The crowd in front was noisy. The young lady was talking and answering many people's questions. Suddenly, a cup of water appeared in front of him. Tong'an looked up and saw Shinsidian pointing at it. This is jasmine tea. Try it. If you're still nervous, you can take a deep breath or hold your hands tightly. It might be useful if you tense up your body for a while. Tong'an was stunned. He subconsciously did as she said and actually felt much better. He raised his head in surprise and said gratefully, "Thank you, Miss Shen." "No need. A doctor told me this before. If you're nervous in the future, it'll be much better when you do this." Shen smiled and handed another cup of water to Yundong. When she saw Shao Qingyuan, she silently handed the cup to Mao and asked him to pass it to him. Shao Qingyuan had brought Mao to suppress the situation. He was afraid that there would be people like the Li family who didn't know what was good for them and came to cause trouble. As expected, with him around, it was as if there was a stabilizing force. At least, after the Li family came over to take a look, they immediately shrank back. The villagers had already lined up obediently. Yundong took a look and said, "The Gu family's workshop is for food, so the minimum requirement is to dress neatly and cleanly. Those who can wring a pile of mud out of their sleeves don't have to queue." The crowd immediately buzzed, especially those who had not showered, washed their hair, and changed their clothes for a few days. They immediately wished they could hide their sleeves. Slowly, some people came out of the group, and a few people simply ran home and quickly washed their hair and changed their clothes before coming back again. But Yundong would not wait for them. She began to call for people and ask about their situations. Although she had given preferential treatment to her fellow villagers this time, if there was anyone good in the neighboring villages, she would naturally want them. After stating her basic request, she sat at the side and waited for Tongan to handle everything. After relieving his nervousness, Tongan raised his brush again. It actually made people feel uneasy when facing him. As long as he asked, the villagers would answer honestly. Tongan nodded as he took notes. When he felt that someone was capable, he would make them stand on the left and wait for Yundong's screening. However, just as he chose the 15th person, Yundong suddenly said, "Not this person." Tongan was not the only one who was stunned. The villager also looked up in surprise. He thought that he was dressed appropriately and was clean. His hair had just been washed this morning, and he was much more energetic than the previous candidate. Moreover, he had the experience of doing short-term work outside. He was also agile and wouldn't slack off. Why didn't she want him? When the Gu family recruited short-term workers, if he hadn't already found a job in the county city, he wouldn't have missed it. This time, he was originally full of confidence. After all, compared to Wang Xuanzi, who was next door, he felt that he had a lot of advantages. Even though he was afraid of Shao Qingyuan, this person couldn't help but ask, "Why? Why don't you want me? Which part of me doesn't meet the requirements?" Shao Qingyuan frowned. That person was terrified and could not help but take a small step back. However, he still looked at Yundong stubbornly. Chapter 405, Holding a Grudge. Sinvel. Yundong did not ask Shao Qingyuan to appear. She just calmly took a sip of tea and smiled at the person. After a while, seeing that the person was getting impatient and irritable, she said, "Why don't I want you?" She raised her eyebrows. "You might as well go back and ask your wife." That person was stunned. Ask his wife? His wife was also here. He turned around to look for his wife. Sure enough, he saw his wife, who was also puzzled, behind the crowd. That person took a few quick steps forward and couldn't control his volume when he was in front of her. He asked loudly, "Tell me, what did you do? Why don't they want me?" His wife shook her head in confusion. The next moment, she suddenly reacted. "No, it can't be, right?" Her expression changed instantly. The man in front of her naturally saw it and immediately roared, "What's going on? I only gossiped about the Gu family's girl last time." "What gossip?" "I just said that she hasn't been back for a few months and she might have run away with the wolf cub." The more she spoke, the softer her voice and the paler her face became. The man felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He knew that his wife was a little gossipy, and she could talk about every little thing in the village for half a day. In the past, he did not take it seriously. Which one of the villagers who had nothing better to do was not like this? However, he didn't expect her to gossip about the Gu family and Shao Qingyuan. She could be so stupid to talk about the two people that she could not afford to offend. Most importantly, they knew about it. The man was so angry that his hands began to tremble. It was fine if this prodigal woman couldn't help the family properly, but she even destroyed the job he had been longing for. His wife saw that he was furious and hurriedly apologized to Gu Yundong. "Miss Gu, I was wrong. Look at my husband. He's very capable. You won't lose out if you hire him as a long-term worker." Gu Yundong smiled. "No matter how good he is, I won't accept him. Since he wants to be my family's long-term worker, he'll be your boss. I can't afford such a long-term worker who dares to ruin his boss' reputation." The man's tense nerves finally snapped with a bang. He reached out and hit his wife ruthlessly. "I must have been blind to marry such a troublesome woman like you. You do nothing all day long and even complain about this and that. I'll beat you to death." The woman was so frightened that she ran around. Mao received Shao Qingyuan's gaze and pulled them out of the team, then let them fight as they pleased. Gu Yundong secretly sneered. When she looked at the crowd again, she saw several women with pale faces and anxious expressions. Under everyone's gaze, she took out a small notebook. After flipping through 2 pages, she said, "Other than the one just now, there's also Deng Danius family, Li Fu's family, Qing Yudi's family, and Li Wugi's family. I don't want any of them." Everyone's expressions were strange. "You actually recorded them in your notebook. Are you afraid that you'll forget them?" The expressions of the families who were called out looked very dangerous. They all turned around to look for their wives. Only Li Fu was at a loss. "My wife died a long time ago." Gu Yundong glanced at him. "Oh, your daughter-in-law was quite enthusiastic when she gossiped." Li Fu's expression changed drastically, and his body trembled with anger. Better marry a smart wife than a pretty one. It was really the ancestors' wise saying. Look at them. All of them had been harmed by their Yundong women. The women had already run away. The men from the families chased after them. After they left, Gu Yundong closed her notebook. "If anyone feels that I did something wrong, you can bring it up." Who would dare? Chapter 406, Chen Family's Nvel. No one raised any objections. Instead, someone said very cleverly, "I think Boss Gu is right. How can a long-term worker go around saying bad things about the boss family and ruin the boss reputation? Moreover, the rumors are all fake. They're spouting nonsense without any evidence. This is because their minds are not clear and there's something wrong with their thoughts." Yo, this one can talk. Gu Yundong had a preliminary impression of this person, but she did not say anything. Quite a number of people chimed in and criticized those women. Even those who had been screened were on Gu Yundong's side. After all, who knew if they would be chosen next time? Gu Yundong was very satisfied with the effect and asked Tongan to continue. Tongan had chosen a total of more than 40 people. He felt that these people were not bad. Next, she asked Gu Yundong to choose another 20 people. After all, she had to count the people who had previously worked for her family. In total, she had recruited more than 30 people. In the end, they confirmed that there were 22 people from the local village and 11 people from the other villages. Qingyuan had been watching from the beginning to the end. At this moment, he was smiling and was extremely satisfied. In the past 6 months, Yongfu village had slowly risen because of the Gu family's workshop. There were many people who repaired houses. As he walked on the village road, he could even smell the fragrance of meat from time to time. Even the matchmakers came frequently. In the future, Yongfu village would probably have to walk in front of other villages. As the village chief, he was proud. Yes, outstanding. On the other hand, Madame Zhou, who was beside him, tugged at Qingyuan's sleeve and asked softly, "Our family really?" Qingyuan turned around and glared at her. "What's wrong with our family? Isn't second son also working at the Gu family? He's pretty good." But the first son, Qingyuan pulled a long face. "If he wants to work here, then he should come himself. If he meets the requirements, the Gu girl will hire him. If he doesn't come himself, do you want the Gu girl to invite him? How shameless." Madame Zhou sighed. Her first son had been working in town. Not long ago, a relative of the boss came over and took over the position of her first son. Her first son could only bring his wife and children back. Now, he was doing farm work at home, but how many years had it been since he went to the fields? One could imagine how frustrated he was. He knew that his brother worked in the Gu family for 500 copper coins a month. Although it was not as much as his salary in town, it was not much different. After all, he had worked in town for so long. The Chen family's first son wanted to come, but he could not bring himself to do so. When Madame Zhou saw Gu Yundong last time, she looked haggard and wanted to say something, but she did not say anything in the end. She knew that it was inappropriate. Madame Zhou was not a thick-skinned person and knew Gu Yundong's character. But as a mother, she felt terrible watching her eldest son suffer at home every day. Chen Liang snorted softly. Let's go. Second son is already a long-term worker of the Gu family. Someone has to do the work at home. It's good that first son is back. With that, they left the Gu residence. Gu Yundong could only see his back from afar. After the recruitment, they signed the contract. Gu Yundong asked everyone to come over the next day to familiarize themselves with the workshop. Only then did the crowd at the entrance of the Gu family slowly disperse. Seeing the 30-odd people who had been recruited, the villagers were envious. Many people went over to get close to them. Gu Yundong did not care. She looked at Tong with admiration in her eyes. You did well today. Tong immediately put down his pen and felt a little embarrassed. He could not help but glance at Shinsidian, but he quickly retracted his gaze and said, Thank you, Mississippi. Chapter 407, Yang's Enlightenment's Novel. CM Shinsidian happened to see him too. She was slightly stunned when she saw him and smiled. Then, she turned around and went through the door to help pack the stuff. She had already embroidered several handkerchiefs over the past few days. Her embroidery skills were not bad, and even Aunt Ku was amazed. When Shinsidian left the Gu village, she had taken 20 taels of silver from Gu Gang. Although it was not a small amount, Gu Yundong had paid for her meals and accommodation along the way. When they arrived at the Gu house, Shinsidian insisted on offering Gu Yundong 10 taels of silver for her cost during this period of time. Currently, she only had 10 taels of silver on her. It was really not enough, and she urgently wanted to earn more. After all, she still had to build a house in the future. Food, clothes, and transportation all required money. Shinsidian planned to stay single for the rest of her life. She had once been a concubine to an old man. Although there were few people who knew about it, there was still a hurdle in her heart that she could not overcome. It was actually quite good to be alone. If she embroidered more handkerchiefs, she could retire after earning enough money. Holding the handkerchief in her hand, Shinsidian planned to go to town tomorrow and sell the handkerchiefs for some money. She went to look for Gu Yundong. She had wanted to ask him how to get to town, but Gu Yundong said directly to Father Tong, It just so happens that Yunshu and the rest are on leave tomorrow. You can drive Miss Shen to the town's cloth shop. Father Tong agreed. The next morning, he prepared carriage. Unexpectedly, just as they were about to set off, Madame Yang also wanted to go. Gu Yundong was surprised. Mother, why are you going to town? Madame Yang ran back to her room and took out 2 handkerchiefs for her to see. Gu Yundong was even more surprised. Mother, did you embroider them? Madame Yang nodded proudly. She had actually learned a lot from Shinsidian over the past few days. Seeing Shinsidian embroidering at the side, she was also busy with her needlework. Madame Yang was a calm person. Compared to Gu Yundong's terrible skills, Madame Yang seemed to be talented in this aspect. With someone teaching her, she actually did quite well. Even Shinsidian did not know that she had secretly embroidered too. After taking a closer look, she realized that they were actually quite exquisite. Mother, are you planning to sell the handkerchiefs too? Gu Yundong was pleasantly surprised and could not bear to part with them. Madame Yang nodded. In exchange for money. Shinsidian smiled. Then give me the handkerchiefs and I'll help you sell them, okay? Madame Yang suddenly hid the handkerchiefs behind her back. She pursed her lips and said, "I'll go myself." Yundong smiled when she saw how determined her mother was. "Mother, you're amazing." "All right, Mother will go with Sidian. I'll get Shui Tao to follow you." Madame Yang immediately nodded happily and hurriedly got into the carriage. Yundong shook her head helplessly and instructed Tong Shuitao not to leave Madame Yang's side. Tong Shuitao agreed seriously. Thus, when Yunka woke up and wanted to play with her mother, she searched the entire Gu family but could not find her mother. Madame Yang carefully wrapped the two handkerchiefs and looked happy. Shen Sidian smiled. "When did Auntie embroider them?" "I didn't even see you." "In my room." "Madam, you're actually keeping it a secret." Tong Shuitao smiled as she supported Madame Yang. The three of them were not lonely as they chatted and laughed in the carriage. Just as the carriage was about to leave the village, a familiar voice suddenly came from outside. "Father Tong, are you going to town? Can you give me a ride?" Shen Sidian lifted the curtain and saw Jiang Yongkang standing outside with a bag on his back. Chapter 408, A Ride Senvel. CM Jiang Yongkang looked up and realized that there were three women in the carriage. He immediately felt embarrassed. "You're all here." "Forget it." Shen Sidian asked, "Uncle Jiang, are you going to town?" Jiang Yongkang nodded and smiled gently. "I haven't been back for a long time. I'm going back to see my grandson with some dried mushrooms for them. I dried them myself." He patted the bag on his body. "Then come up. We're going to town too." They had gotten his help last time. Could it be that they were unwilling to even give him a ride? This isn't a good idea. Tong Shuitao didn't like his hesitation and said, "What's the matter? You can just sit outside with my grandfather." Madame Yang also nodded. Jiang Yongkang thanked him and got into the carriage. Father Tong chuckled. "Hold on tight." The carriage set off again. However, the three people in the carriage who were originally chatting happily could not say anything because there was an unfamiliar man outside. Jiang Yongkang was also very quiet. Occasionally, he would talk to Father Tong in a low voice. The carriage arrived in town not long after. Jiang Yongkang bade them farewell and left with his bag. Father Tong had been to this town a few times and knew where there was a cloth shop. He immediately rode the carriage to the largest cloth shop. Tong Shuitao accompanied Madame Yang and Shen Sidian in. Father Tong found a place to park the carriage and waited for them. After an unknown period of time, he finally saw the three of them coming out from afar. However, compared to their expressions when they entered, the three of them had very ugly expressions. His granddaughter clenched her fists and looked like she was about to hit someone. Father Tong hurriedly went forward. Before he could ask, he heard Tong Shuitao's indignant voice. "She's too much of a bully." Seeing that we're strangers, she kept lowering the price. 5 copper coins per piece. We even used our own embroidery thread and fabric. How shameless of her. Father Tong quickly asked, "What happened?" Tong Shuitao said, "The lady boss of that cloth shop is a good-for-nothing. At first, when she saw that we were dressed well, she thought that we were going to buy things. In the end, when we asked her if she wanted embroidered handkerchiefs, her expression changed on the spot. When she saw Miss Shen's handkerchief, she kept despising it and only gave us 5 copper coins. It was as if she was dismissing a beggar." Father Tong couldn't help but frown. Although he didn't know much about this, he heard from his wife and Aunt Ku that Miss Shen's embroidery work was something that few people could compare to. Anyone who knew a little about the market would pay at least 20 copper coins for a handkerchief. "I know another cloth shop. Why don't we go there and take a look?" Shen Sidian nodded. "Yes, let's take a look at more shops. We can compare them." The three of them walked in the direction of the carriage. Father Tong could not help but say, "Actually, the town can't compare to the county city. Why don't you go to the county city and ask? Shen Sitian held her forehead. At that time, I thought that since the town was close, I could just walk over myself. I didn't want to trouble Father Tong to bring me over. Who knew that when Yundong heard that I was coming over, she would ask you to drive me? She didn't expect Madame Yang to follow too. How is this troublesome? I have to send the two young masters to school every day. It's by the way. Shen Sitian shook her head. Yunshu and Yuanji went early. You went in as soon as the city gate opened. You came back immediately after sending them off. I heard that most of the cloth shops in the county weren't open at that time. How could I make you wait? Chapter 409, Madame Yang is unhappy. Zenvel. When Father Tong heard this, he could not help but rub his head. He chuckled and did not know how to answer. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from behind. Father Tong? Why are you here? The few of them turned around. Whoa, wasn't this Jiang Yongkang who had just left not long ago? Father Tong was also surprised. Why are you here? My house is over there. Jiang Yongkang pointed to an alley not far away. I just went home and put my things down. I'm going to buy some vegetables to cook. Do you want to come to my house? No. Shen Sitian rejected him. We still have to find a cloth shop. Cloth shop? Jiang Yongkang was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. You want to buy cloth? I think there's only Qian's clothing shop nearby. However, that shop looks big, but it doesn't have a good reputation in our area. It's best to change to another shop. Tong Shuetao's eyes lit up. That's right. Uncle Jiang, you're very familiar with this town. Do you know which cloth shop accepts embroidery work at a fair price? Jiang Yongkang smiled. There really is one. I'll bring you there. There's no need. You still have to buy groceries. Just point us in the right direction and we'll go ourselves. Jiang Yongkang said, it's not far. The market I'm going to is also there. Let's go and not waste any more time. As he spoke, he suddenly paused and looked at Father Tong. It's just that it's not easy to ride this carriage over. The road is narrow, and it's easy for the carriage to bump into the small stalls by the roadside. Tong Shuetao waved her hand. Then wait for us here. Father Tong could only stay behind and continue watching the carriage. The cloth shop that Jiang Yongkang mentioned was indeed not far. It was just 2 alleys away. The cloth shop was clean and tidy. Although the size of the shop was not as big as the previous one, the boss' smiling attitude was quite good. When he saw the embroidery handkerchief Shen Sitian took out, his eyes lit up. This embroidery is good. Did you embroider it? After Shen Sitian nodded, the boss was even happier. He bought the embroidered handkerchiefs for 30 copper coins apiece. This was considered a high price in the town. It was higher than Shen Sitian had expected. She had embroidered 10 handkerchiefs and earned 300 copper coins. She was still a little excited. After that, the boss took out an embroidery drawing and asked her if she could embroider it. Shen Sitian did not expect to receive embroidery work. She looked at the picture carefully and immediately agreed. The boss said that if she could finish the embroidery in half a month, he would give her 1 tael of silver directly. Moreover, he would give her the fabric and thread. Before Shen Sitian could say anything, Tong Shuetao's eyes lit up. 1 tael of silver for half a month, 2 taels of silver a month. So embroidery was so profitable? Shen Sitian agreed and looked at Madame Yang. Auntie, where's your embroidery handkerchief? The boss was stunned. He looked at the woman who had been silent but looked to be the best dressed among the 3 of them. Madame Yang took out the embroidered handkerchief shakily and said, 30 copper coins. The boss was speechless. Although this embroidery was not bad, his eyes were sharp. With one look, he knew that it was done by someone new. It was not worth 30 copper coins at all. How about this? I'll give you a total of 30 copper coins for 2 handkerchiefs, okay? Madame Yang immediately took the handkerchief back with an unhappy expression. Seeing this, Shen Sidian quickly gave the boss a look. In a place where Madame Yang could not see, she secretly gave the boss 30 copper coins. The boss could also tell that Madame Yang was different from ordinary people. At first, he thought that this lady wanted to take advantage of him. He accepted Shen Sidian's 30 copper coins and immediately said to Madame Yang, "I was wrong. This handkerchief is 30 copper coins apiece. I'll pay you now." Chapter 410, Don't Disclose Your Wealth Vel. Madame Yang looked up and was indeed happy. She happily took the copper coins and counted them one by one. The boss didn't chase her away. He even thought that this person was quite interesting. It seemed that her family also indulged her. In this world, many people with bad brains were despised by their families. This madam was already very happy. Shen Sidian and Tong Shuetao looked at each other and did not say anything. After Madame Yang finished counting, the three of them left the cloth shop. Unexpectedly, after walking out of the door, she saw Jiang and Yongkang still standing there waiting for them. Shen Sidian said, "Uncle Jiang, you don't have to wait for us. It's not troublesome. It's still early anyway. How is it? Did it go smoothly?" "It went well. I have to thank Uncle Jiang. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have been able to find this shop." Jiang Yongkang waved his hand. "You're too kind. You even gave me a ride. Otherwise, I'd still be traveling and tiring myself to death. Where else do you want to go? I can take you there." Shen Sidian was about to refuse when Madame Yang said, "I want to buy something." "Buy what?" Jiang Yongkang treated her like a child. He was very patient with her and even smiled. Madame Yang counted with her fingers. "Pancakes, for Kiki. Brush holder, for Yunshu and Yuanji. Comb, and for Dong Dong. That's all." Tong Shuetao choked. "But madam, you don't seem to have enough copper coins." Although these items could be bought at a stall, there were 2 brush holders among them. It was hard to say. 60 copper coins seemed to be a lot, but it was not enough to buy everything. Unexpectedly, Madame Yang raised her eyebrows proudly and suddenly took out a money bag. She shook it slightly. "I have it. There's silver inside." The few people standing beside her could clearly hear the sound of silver pieces swaying inside. Jiang Yongkang hurriedly said, "Quickly put away the money bag. Don't reveal your wealth, lest you're targeted." When Shen Sidian heard this, she immediately pressed down Madame Yang's hand and said, "Then let's go buy something first." "Well, go back early after we're done." "Okay." Madame Yang was very happy. Her money was naturally given to her by Yundong. She would return what Yundong gave her in the past and ask her daughter to keep it safe for her. However, ever since she returned from her trip, she would occasionally keep the silver behind. Actually, Madame Yang didn't know how much she needed. She felt that she had saved enough, so she wanted to buy things for the children. Now that Shen Sidian and Tong Shuetao did not object, she should have enough money. She looked around the stalls by the roadside. The pastries and comb were easy to buy, and it didn't take long. Brush holders were different. Usually, such things were sold in bookstores. Of course, there were also some in the stalls outside, but most of them were made of bamboo. They were not particular about carving skills, like bamboo joints placed there. Madame Yang didn't understand at first. When people said that this was a brush holder, she planned to pay for it. However, how could Shen Sidian and Tong Shuetao allow her to be treated like a fool? They could just let Boss Tong cut her into 2 pieces of bamboo later. They asked Jiang Yongkang, who had been following them, and brought Madame Yang to the bookstore. Sure enough, she saw the brush holders in the bookstore that matched her thoughts. They were just expensive. In this day and age, scholars' things were expensive, but Madame Yang was very satisfied. She put everything away in a cloth bag and came out of the bookstore. Let's go home. Dong Dong, Yunshu, Kiki, and Yuanji would definitely be very happy to see the gifts. Just as she was thinking this, their path forward was suddenly blocked. Chapter 411, Call for Help? Beat them up, Senvel. CM Madame Yang looked up and met a pair of greedy eyes. That person stared at Madame Yang's hand and smiled. She looks like a fat sheep. As soon as he said that, 4 or 5 people around him laughed. The few of them slowly approached them. Shen Sitian immediately shielded Madame Yang behind her and cursed in her heart. It seemed that these people had seen the money bag Madame Yang took out. As expected, one should not reveal their wealth. Jiang Yongkang took a step forward and made Shen Sitian retreat as well. He stood in front of the 3 women. I'm from town after all. I'll talk to them. His gaze became sharp as he met the eyes of those sloppy people. He said, You want to rob me in broad daylight? My home is in this town. There are many familiar families nearby. As long as I shout, everyone will come out to help me. At that time, they'll send you straight to the police office. You won't end well. The few of them looked at each other, but the leader looked unconvinced. Who are you trying to scare? I've been following you for a long time. I can tell at a glance that you're not from this town. Otherwise, why would you have to ask someone to find a bookstore? They're not, but I am. The leader sneered. All right, then shout. As he spoke, he rushed over. Jiang Yongkang was about to open his mouth when a gust of wind suddenly flashed behind him. He was stunned for a moment. When he took a closer look, he saw that Tong Shuetao had already stood in front of him. Miss Tong, don't be afraid. I can call for help. What are you calling for help? Just beat them up. Tong Shuetao grabbed the wrist that had rushed in front of her and bent it down fiercely. She kicked his stomach and directly sent him flying. The few people who rushed over from behind were stunned. They looked at this woman who was not even as tall as their shoulders in disbelief. However, Tong Shuetao did not give them a chance to react at all. They did not dare to attack, so she charged at them herself. She was strong to begin with. Now that she had learned from the bodyguard for a few days, the effect was immediate. The escort said that she was very talented. If not for the fact that she hadn't learned martial arts sooner, she might have become an expert. However, she was not bad now. At least, she was better than Ah Mao and the others. She stimulated Ah Mao and the others to train day and night. They were afraid that it would be too embarrassing for her to left them far behind. Now that she was facing such lowly people, they were beaten up effortlessly. This was also the reason why Yundong was assured to let Madame Yang go out. With Tong Shuetao accompanying her, safety could be guaranteed in such a small town. Looking at the hooligans lying on the ground moaning, Tong Shuetao was disdainful. You're so weak that you're a burden to me even if I use you as sandbags. How dare you try to rob me? You woman, the gangster's hand was almost broken. He was in so much pain that he couldn't speak. Tong Shuetao pressed a foot on his chest. What do you want to say? Tell me, I'm listening. As she spoke, she exerted force. The hoodlum couldn't breathe, and his eyes began to turn white. Shen Sitian saw that there were more and more people watching the commotion and quickly pulled her back. Let's go. Your grandfather is waiting. Tong Shuetao nodded and ran to Madame Yang's side, looking like she was protecting her. Shen Sitian looked down at the person on the ground and secretly clicked her tongue. As expected of Yundong's disciple. The master and servant's personalities were becoming more and more similar. She shook her head and quickly followed Madame Yang. After walking for a while, she realized that Jiang Yongkang was not following them. Chapter 412, Like a Mother's Novel. CM Shen Sitian turned around and saw that the person was still dumbfounded. She turned back. Uncle Jiang? Jiang Yongkang suddenly came back to his senses and blinked blankly. What's wrong? Let's go back. Oh. Jiang Yongkang nodded and followed. After taking a few steps, he couldn't help but look back at the people who were still moaning on the ground. He had heard that Miss Gus' maidservant was very strong, but he did not expect her to be so strong. To think that he had been so eager to convince the other party just now so that he wouldn't suffer a loss. When they reached the carriage, they saw Father Tong waiting anxiously. When he saw them coming over, he asked curiously, "What took you so long? I almost went to look for you. We bought some things." Shinsidian did not mention that they had encountered hooligans, lest he worry. When Jiang Yongkang saw them get into the carriage, he said goodbye. "You guys can go back. I'm going home with groceries too." Tong Shuitao asked him softly, "Uncle Jiang, if you stay in this town, what if those hooligans find trouble with you again?" "Don't worry, I'll just stay at home for a day. I'll return to Yongfu village tomorrow. Besides, I've lived in town for so many years. I really know my neighbors. When the time comes, I can just shout and someone will help me. You guys can go back." Only then did Tong Shuitao relax and crawl back into the carriage. In the group, only Madame Yang's expression did not change much. After all, when they escaped from the famine back then, she had encountered many such robbers. Dong Dong could deal with them in a few moves. Dong Dong was not by her side today, and she panicked at first. However, when she saw Tong Shuitao attack, looking no different from Dong Dong, she was relieved. At this moment, she was still holding the few things she had just bought preciously. When she reached home, she did not see Gu Yundong. She only saw Gu Yunka pouncing at her. She could not wait to give her the pastry. "Kiki, eat." The little girl was stunned for a moment, and her eyes lit up. "Mother, did you buy it for me?" Madame Yang nodded and held her hand as they walked in. Yunshu and Yuanji were indeed in the study, reading quietly and obediently. Madame Yang dug around in the bag and took out the brush holders. "Here." The two little guys were stunned. They looked at the exquisite brush holders and could not recover for a moment. Madame Yang tilted her head and asked with a frown, "You don't like it?" "I like it, of course I like it." The two of them hurriedly nodded and reached out to take the brush holders. Yunshu's eyes were a little red. He went over and hugged Madame Yang's waist. "Mother, you're the best." He could feel that ever since his mother came back, her illness did not seem to be as serious as before. She was becoming more and more like a mother. Madame Yang chuckled and quickly let go of him to look for Gu Yundong. Only the comb was left. Coincidentally, Gu Yundong had just returned from the workshop. Everyone had come to work today, so she assigned the jobs first. She planned to arrange the work in the form of an assembly line. Each person would be in charge of a portion. This way, it would be more efficient and the method would not be leaked. However, just as she returned from her work, Tong Shuitao came over and told her about meeting hooligans in town. Gu Yundong's expression changed slightly. Without another word, she immediately walked in. Worried, she went to look for Madame Yang to see if she was injured. Tong Shuitao opened her mouth. There was actually something she didn't say. Chapter 413, Warm and Lively Zenvel. Although 30 copper coins was not much for the current miss, it did not seem good for Miss Shen to give it to Madame for nothing. But on the way back, Shinsidian reminded her not to tell anyone. She had been eating and living in the Gu house for so long, and Gu Yundong had only accepted a small amount of accommodation fees from her. She already felt bad. There was no need to mention the 30 copper coins. Although Tong Shuitao understood, she was still very conflicted. After all, she was the young Miss maidservant. No matter how small the matter was, she should tell the young miss. Over the past few days, she had been practicing martial arts at the Shao family's house. Her future master-in-law often reminded them of this. Thinking of this, Tong Shuitao suddenly became determined and immediately ran in. Gu Yundong was holding the comb that Madame Yang had given her and smiling. She had naturally noticed the problem that Gu Yunshu had discovered long ago. Although Song de Jiang had not completely cured Madame Yang, Madame Yang's situation was indeed developing in a good direction after the last treatment. Now, she actually knew how to buy gifts for everyone. Moreover, the gifts were considerate. She did not know how long her mother had been thinking about it. Yundong cherished the comb and put it away. Only then did she look up and meet Madame Yang's gaze that was begging for praise. Did mother embroider the handkerchiefs just to buy these? Madame Yang nodded vigorously. Your mother. Yundong held her hand. Yes, mother is great. You've worked so hard. I'll cook tonight and make delicious food for you, okay? Yunka, who was offering a bite of the pastry to his brother, immediately turned around and ran over. I'll cook too. I know how to do it. Aunt said that Kiki is very capable. Yundong patted her head. Alright, let's do it together. Ever since she bought the Tong family, almost every meal was cooked by the Tong family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Yundong had not cooked for a long time. Since she was happy today, she washed her hands early and kneaded the dough. The little girl was also kneading the dough at the side and crushing the small doughs one by one. With the flour on her face, she looked exceptionally soft and cute. Her mother said that she wanted to eat dumplings, so they would make dumplings today. Although Yunka didn't know how to make dumplings yet, she could still put the vegetables and meat into the covers. Not only did Yundong prepare dumplings, but she also prepared noodles and Shao Qingyuan's favorite egg fried rice. Anyway, there were many people, so it would be lively to eat together. Tong Shuitao had told Yundong about the 30 copper coins, but she did not intend to return the money to Shinsidian, if she could live comfortably in the Gu family. The whole family was bustling as if it was a festive occasion. Mao and the others had even drunk alcohol. When they returned, they were a little drunk. Therefore, they woke up late the next day and did not make it in time to practice martial arts. When they got up, the four of them trembled when they saw Shao Qingyuan's expressionless face. Fortunately, Tong Shuitao came over to say that Big Chen and the others had returned and had even brought back 2 large carts of fruits. Mao and the others hurriedly jumped up and said that they wanted to make up for their mistakes and help unload the fruits. Shao Qingyuan snorted and didn't say anything, but he went to help himself. Big Chen and the others had indeed arrived at the entrance of the village. At this moment, many villagers had surrounded them. Looking at the large cart of loquats, they actually felt their mouths water and could not help but swallow their saliva. Some people who were rich couldn't help but want to buy some back. Big Chen was a little worried that these people would come and snatch the fruits. Shao Qingyuan and the others came over at this time. Tong Shuitao ran straight to Boss Tong's side. Seeing that he was travel-worn, she said, "Father, you're back." Shao Qingyuan didn't see Lu Wei and asked Big Chen. Chapter 414, Sneakies and Vel. Unexpectedly, the corners of Big Qian's mouth twitched as he said, "Young Master Lu bought 2 big boxes himself and brought them home first." Shao Qingyuan was speechless. So this was the reason why he was so enthusiastic about collecting the fruits? Shaking his head, he asked Mao and the others to help push the fruits back. Tong Shuitao was strong and immediately went to the head of the carriage. Unexpectedly, just as she walked around her father, she saw a few figures hiding not far away. She narrowed her eyes and almost cried out. Seeing that she did not move for a long time, Tong Ping could not help but push her. "What? You can't move it? Then let me tell you. You have to be careful of this carriage. Otherwise, it will easily overturn. You're inexperienced, so give it to me." "No, father, Tong Shuitao wanted to say something, but it was useless to tell her father about this. She simply let go and handed the carriage back to her father. Seeing Mao coming over to push the cart, she immediately said in a low voice, "Didn't I tell you yesterday that I met a few hooligans in town who wanted to rob Madam? I saw them again just now." Mao was shocked. "Where are they?" "They're over there. They're mixed in with the crowd. Do you think they wanted to take revenge, so they found out where our house is and want to take the opportunity to harm Madam? Do they dare? Ah, Mao sneered. He thought for a moment and ran to Shao Qingyuan's side. Young master, those bastards are over there. Can we teach them a lesson? Shao Qingyuan nodded. Yes, sure. Ah, Mao smiled. Very good. He had finally found a live target after practicing martial arts for so many days. He turned around and called Ah Go over. He told Ah Shu and Ah Zhu to continue working. It was just teaching a few hooligans a lesson. He and Ah Go were enough. However, Tong Shuitao also wanted to follow them, afraid that they would attack the wrong person. Besides, she could actually handle it alone. She didn't need Ah Mao and Ah Go to follow her. Ah Mao was still a little unconvinced. Why did she make it sound like they were stupid? The fruits were pulled away, and the villagers followed along. The hooligans in the crowd followed a few steps and walked in another direction when no one was paying attention. Ah Mao and the other two snorted and followed behind silently. When they arrived at a remote and uninhabited place, the three of them instantly ran forward and surrounded them. The hooligans were still a little confused. They looked at Ah Mao, who was standing at the front, in confusion. They frowned and shouted, "What are you doing? Do you want to fight? What are you talking about?" Tong Shuitao walked over from behind and looked at them with disdain. As soon as they saw her, the hooligans immediately understood, and a trace of fear flashed across their faces. The next moment, they turned around and ran. They were smart enough to split up out. However, Mao had brought Ah Go along. 3 people against 6 people, 2 each. Tell me, why did you come to our village? Are you trying to take revenge on me? Tong Shuitao asked. The hooligan leader shook his head like a rattle drum. No, no. We were just passing by. Do you think you're a fool, or do you think we're fools? Ah Mao slapped his head hard. Tell me the truth, or I'll hit you. I really didn't want to take revenge. You guys are so powerful. Do we dare? We just saw that there were a lot of fruits shipped over and wanted to steal some. The others quickly nodded. Ah Mao sneered. If you want to steal the fruits, you should have followed the carriages. Why did you run out alone? Tong Shuitao said, I think they're here to take revenge on us. When we left yesterday, you guys even glared at us. Your gazes were fierce. There must be a conspiracy. Then let's fight. Chapter 4:15. Someone instigated us. Snvel. The few of them started beating the hooligans up without saying a word. They even specially hit the places that hurt. The few hooligans immediately wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. They covered their heads and fled. Stop, stop, we really don't want to take revenge. No one listened, and they still attacked without hesitation. We're here to find someone, Tong Shuitao snorted coldly. I know. You came to look for us, but you still said that you didn't come to find trouble with us? You were beaten up by me yesterday. Did you really want to get back and snatch some money back? No, no. We didn't want to rob at all. We just took their money to put on a show. It was unknown which hooligan couldn't take it anymore and shouted, shut up and stop talking nonsense. Tong Shuitao, Ah Mao, and Ah Go stopped what they were doing at the same time. They looked at the person who had let it slip. Their eyes were still glowing with danger. The hooligans immediately felt their hair stand on end, as if the 3 of them were much more terrifying than before. Ah Mao covered the boss' mouth and dragged him to the side. Ah Go and Tong Shuitao blocked the rascal who had let the cat out of the bag and asked with a bloody expression, You took someone's money and pretended to rob us, right? Tell me, who paid you? The leader of the hooligans was whimpering when Ah Mao punched him so hard that he vomited. This scene frightened the gangster so much that he didn't hesitate at all. He confessed while trembling, It's that Jiang guy. The man who was with you yesterday, really. Otherwise, why would we come to Yongfu village? It's all because we were beaten up yesterday. In the end, we didn't see him at his house, so we came to Yongfu village to find him. Tong Shuetao was stunned. She looked at the sincere hooligan in shock. Are you serious? Yes, absolutely. That person nodded hurriedly. Tong Shuetao frowned, feeling that it was unbelievable. Jiang Yongkang looked very refined. When he spoke to them, he had always been soft-spoken and patient. If they did not know his family situation, anyone who saw him for the first time would think that he was a scholar or a teacher. Although Tong Shuetao did not like people who spoke gently, she still felt that the other party was a very good and friendly person. But now, someone was telling her that this person had colluded with hooligans to rob them? She looked at the hooligan. Why would he do that? How would I know? The hooligan wanted to cry. He wants us to block your way and wait for him to call for help. Then we'll run away in fear. That's all. The cats and dogs looked at each other. Was he trying to save the damsel in distress? 3 heroes, I've said everything I know. Can you let us go? We really didn't want to take revenge on you. We can't take revenge on you all. After witnessing Tong Shuetao's martial arts, no matter how ignorant they were, they wouldn't rush to find trouble. Wasn't this asking for death? Tong Shuetao frowned and kicked his butt. Get lost, get lost. Don't let me see you again, or you'll be unlucky. The few of them hurriedly stood up and helped the boss, who had vomited until his face was pale, run away. What does that Jiang guy mean? Ah Go asked. Ah Mao didn't know either. He glanced in Jiang Yongkang's direction and said, let's go back first and ask Miss and young master how to deal with this. The two of them nodded and quickly ran towards the Gu family. Chapter 4:16. Why did you do this, Snvel? CM Gu Yundong was still in the workshop when the loquats arrived. Those things were not easy to keep fresh, so they had to be made into dried loquat sauce and canned loquats. The assignments of the workers had already been explained the day before. Now, everyone was in their positions. They washed the fruits, tore off the skins, removed the cores, dried them, and steamed them. Everyone was busy. The clay pots that Gu Yundong had asked Shao Qingyuan to order 2 days ago had arrived early this morning. There were already hundreds of clay pots. When the time came, these clay pots would be packed with gauze, grass cakes, bamboo leaves, mud, and other meticulous seals. They would be canned food in ancient times. She even got the family who made the clay pots to carve Gus at the bottom of the clay pot. She had specially asked Yunshu to ask Qin Wenjing for the word Gus. The handwriting was strong and unique, so it was really difficult to fake. When she sold the cans later, she could still recycle the containers. She could get the customers to wash them clean and return them. Then, she could refund them for 5 copper coins or something. She had to use them sparingly. As she thought about it, she brought Tong in to look at them one by one. If she encountered any problems, she would stop and say a few words. The workshop was in full swing. Gu Yundong spent almost the entire day there. She wasn't the only one. Shao Qingyuan, Shu, Zhu, the Tong family, and Shinsidian were all helping. It was almost evening before the group returned. Unexpectedly, as soon as they entered the house, Aunt Ku said, let's go to the central room first. Shuetao has something to tell you. Gu Yundong was slightly taken aback. Seeing the serious look on Aunt Ke's face, she felt that it was not a small matter. Why didn't she look for me at the workshop? I stopped her. It's your first day of work, so there are a lot of things to do. It's not a serious matter. If she meets you, it'll cause trouble for you. She can talk to you when you come back. Why did you look like that if it wasn't something serious? Gu Yundong was very puzzled. As soon as they entered the house, Tong Shuetao immediately stood up. Mississippi. Gu Yundong took the water from Shao Qingyuan and gulped down 2 mouthfuls before sitting down. Tell me, what is it? Tong Shuetao told her everything in detail. Shen Sitian was the most surprised. She found it unbelievable. Did Uncle Jiang really pay them? Tong Shueitao nodded, then felt a little vexed. I was too shocked at that time, so I let those hooligans go. Aunt said that we should bring them back. That way, we will have witnesses. She was too impulsive. Ah Mao and Ah Go were also idiots. They had not thought of this. But why would he do that? Shen Sitian thought of Jiang Yongkang, who had been laughing and helping them enthusiastically yesterday. She felt that it was difficult to combine him with the person who had paid the hooligans to rob her. Gu Yundong frowned. Could it be that he saw that the Gu family is rich and deliberately acted this way so that we would be grateful to him? Does he have a favor to ask of us? It was not that she was narcissistic, but there were indeed many people eyeing the Gu family now. Gu Yundong had met many people who wanted to build a relationship with the Gu family, including the wealthy families in the county. Tong Shueitao also felt that it was possible. Does he want to work in our workshop? But he's afraid that our family won't hire him, so he might as well use this method. Perhaps this way, he can become a small manager and earn more money, right? Aunt Ke couldn't help but roll her eyes. These two people were really... Can you guys think simpler? Can't it be because he took a fancy to someone? Chapter 417, Jiang Yongkang is here Zenvel. CM Gu Yundong and Tong Shueitao looked up at the same time. Who is it? Aunt Ke pouted to the side. Everyone followed her gaze and looked at Shen Sitian. Shen Sitian was also stunned. She pointed at her nose. Me? How is that possible? Why not? Isn't saving a damsel in distress usually for the sake of the beauty? Think about it, didn't he help you the last time by the river? He was also the one who pointed you in the right direction when you went to town to sell embroidery. He even accompanied you all the way to finish everything. Aunt Ke spoke with great experience. Shen Sitian still found it unbelievable. But Auntie and Shueitao were with me yesterday. Why couldn't he have taken a fancy to them? Shueitao is just a little girl who hasn't grown up yet. She's still heartless and slow when it comes to relationships. What Aunt Ke did not say was that she was now a servant. Even if Jiang Yukang had taken a fancy to her, he should not have made his presence known in front of Gu Yundong. It was more appropriate to ask Gu Yundong for her. Tong Shueitao was still a little unconvinced when she heard this. What did Aunt Ke mean by she hadn't grown up yet? She was even a year older than Mississippi. However, on second thought, it was better for her not to grow up if Jiang Yongkang might take a fancy to her. Aunt Ke continued, as for your aunt, let's not talk about anything else. She's a married woman with children. Now, she's even more ignorant about relationships. Even if the hero who saves her in distress accidentally dies in front of her, she probably still doesn't understand what he wants to do. What he said made a lot of sense. However, Shen Sitian still felt that it was unlikely. But he already has a grandson. He's a generation older than me. For some reason, Shen Sitian felt a chill. Aunt Ke snorted coldly. It's precisely because he's old and feels that there's not much hope that he used such a method. She looked so confident that everyone actually thought that was the case. However, Shen Sitian wanted to cry. She had no feelings for Jiang Yongkang at all. I still don't believe it. Why don't we go and ask? How? Aunt Ke asked. Tong Shueitao was eager to give it a try. Let's fight it out. Let's not talk about anything else. Just yesterday, he colluded with a few hooligans to rob us. That's enough for us to come knocking on his door to reason with him. Her mother, Madame Jiang, couldn't help but reprimand her. Don't mess around. Why are you shouting about beating and killing all day long now? You have to have a reason to come knocking on his door. You've let those hooligans go. What if he doesn't admit it? Tong Shueitao was a little depressed. Madame Jiang glared at her again. Miss hasn't even said anything. Only then did everyone realize that Gu Yundong had been silent. Qingyuan could not help but ask her, "What are you thinking about?" Yundong pursed her lips. She was thinking about Aunt Kes' words. Actually, she had already found it strange when she saw Jiang Yongkang previously. According to Aunt Ku, before they returned to Yongfu village, she had only seen Jiang Yongkang twice in more than a month. However, they had only been back for a few days, but they bumped into him every other day. This was too frequent. Especially since the Gu family was at the foot of the mountain, and they had little contact with the other locals in the village. Moreover, he was very warm-hearted, and this warm-heartedness would not make people feel uncomfortable. It would make sense if he had taken a fancy to Shinsidian. A thought suddenly flashed across Gu Yundong's mind, but it was too fast for her to grasp it. Just as she was about to think about it, Mao ran in and said to everyone, "Jiang Yongkang is here. He's just outside the door. Miss, should we let him in?" Chapter 418, Apologize Sinvel. CM Gu Yundong sat up straight. Let him in. When Jiang Yongkang came over, Madame Jiang, who was a servant, brought Tong Shuetao out. Only Gu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan, and Shinsidian were left in the central room. Even Aunt Ku had left. When Jiang Yongkang came in, his face was ashen and he looked a little haggard. After he entered, he glanced at Shinsidian, whose expression changed slightly and she clenched her fists tightly. Sit. Gu Yundong pointed to a chair at the side. Jiang Yongkang smiled bitterly. She had stopped calling him Uncle Jiang. He lowered his head slightly, rubbed his hands, and said uneasily, "I want sit. I came here today to apologize to Miss Shen." Shishan's expression was tense, and her voice turned colder. "What are you trying to say?" "I know I did something wrong yesterday. I shouldn't have asked those hooligans to scare you. As he spoke, he paused and took a deep breath. "It's just that since the first time I saw you, I've liked you. I know that I'm letting my imagination run wild. I'm already so old and have children and grandchildren. You want like me. If I rashly propose marriage, I might be chased out. That's why I took a crooked path and thought of that method." Shishan's expression turned even uglier. Looking at Jiang Yongkang at this moment, she inexplicably thought of Gu Gang. Even though Jiang Yongkang was much younger than Gu Gang, the feeling of being liked by her elders was simply terrible. As Jiang Yongkang spoke, he covered his face. After a while, he said, "I'm too ashamed to see you again. I came here today to apologize to you. You can punish me however you want." He bowed deeply and stood there with his head lowered, looking like he was letting Shinsidian hit and scold him. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and then at Shinsidian. After all, this was her business and Gu Yundong could not interfere too much. Shinsidian only felt very annoyed. Her previous respect for Jiang Yongkang instantly disappeared. She stood up and said, "Please don't appear in front of me in the future." Jiang Yongkang looked up in shock. When he met Shinsidian's rejecting gaze, his eyes darkened. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, "Okay." Then, he apologized again, turned around, and strode away. However, Shinsidian seemed to have run out of energy and fell back into her chair. "What's going on?" Aunt Ku came out of nowhere. She must have heard a lot. She walked to Shinsidian's side and patted her shoulder. "You're good-looking and have a good personality. It's normal for someone to like you. It was just that this person was overestimating himself. He was simply a toad lusting after swan meat. How could a beautiful young lady take a fancy to an old uncle? I just feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable all over," Shinsidian said weakly. "Then why did you let him off so easily?" Gu Yundong asked. "What else? Do you think I should beat him up?" She only wanted to draw the line between them quickly and did not want to pester him at all. "Why not? It's good to kick him twice. It's not too much to teach him a lesson for what he did yesterday. Anyway, if it were her, Gu Yundong would have wanted to hit him. She suddenly thought of Shao Qingyuan. She narrowed her eyes and turned to look at him. Shao Qingyuan had actually been looking at her. Whenever Gu Yundong was present, his gaze was mostly on her. Therefore, when he saw her get up and go to the backyard, he followed her when no one was looking. Chapter 419, The two children want return to Enlightenment. As soon as they reached the backyard, he couldn't help but hold her hand. It seemed that ever since they held hands last time, Shao Qingyuan would always think of ways to hold her hand. Gu Yundong looked down but did not take her hand back. She just glanced at him with a faint smile. I suddenly remembered something. What is it? Shao Qingyuan felt that her small hand was especially smooth and tender. Holding it made him feel satisfied and he couldn't bear to part with it. Tell me, did you also play some tricks? For example, 3 wild boars turned into 2. You clearly had money, but you didn't eat well or wear good clothes. Did you deliberately appear in front of me frequently? Shao Qingyuan's face tightened, and he stopped kneading her hand. He looked up and met her raised eyebrows. His voice lowered slightly. That was a legitimate, small trick. Jiang Yongkang's was illegitimate. I didn't expect you to be such a scheming man. The corners of Shao Qingyuan's mouth tightened. You hate it? Hate it? Not really. She was even a little happy. This man, who had tried all means to attract her attention, had actually satisfied her little vanity. Gu Yundong, you're a white lotus who is so pretentious after taking advantage of him. I despise you 10,000 times. After despising herself, Gu Yundong threw the thought aside. Shao Qingyuan acutely sensed the change in her emotions, especially when he saw the corners of her mouth curl up slightly. He suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. He held her hand tightly and pulled her into his arms. Gu Yundong's nose was instantly filled with his scent. She heard his low voice. I won't do anything that might hurt you. It was impossible to find some hooligans like Jiang Yongkang did to fulfill his dream of saving the damsel in distress. What if they scared her? Gu Yundong's smile widened. Of course. Shao Qingyuan was many times better than Jiang Yongkang. Cough, cough. Suddenly, light coughs came from the side. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan turned around at the same time and saw Aunt Ku standing at the entrance of the courtyard with a look of disdain. You're not married yet. Control yourselves. Shao Qingyuan was a little angry. He had only hugged her for a while. Gu Yundong suddenly hugged his waist tightly before letting go. Then, under Shao Qingyuan's smiling gaze, she looked at Aunt Ku and asked, What's the matter? Aunt Ku pointed at her and snorted. Father Tong is back. He said that Yunshu and Yuanji won't be back today. What is it? I think a classmate invited them over as guests. They'll stay for the night, Aunt Ku said. Actually, in the past 6 months, Yunshu has been to several of his classmates' houses. It's just that you hadn't returned yet. He hasn't invited his classmates to his place yet. I heard that it's Yunshu's birthday in a few days. Should we invite his classmates over as guests? Gu Yundong was stunned. Birthday? Damn it, she had almost forgotten. Not only did she not remember Gu Yunshu's birthday, but she also did not remember her own. In her previous life, she grew up in an orphanage and did not even know the exact date of her birth. The date on her identity card was random. Hence, she had never celebrated a birthday since she was young. Occasionally, when she saw those scenes on television, she would vaguely remember that there was such a day that belonged to her. If she had a sudden impulse, she would treat that day as her birthday and make a small cake to eat alone in the apartment. Now that she had a family in this life, birthdays seemed to have become especially important. She recalled carefully and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, other than Yunshu, her family's birthdays were in the second half of the year. Chapter 420, New Goods in the Shops in Vel. Alright, let's wait for Yunshu's birthday. Well, invite his classmates to our house. Gu Yundong was actually looking forward to it. In fact, Yunshu had not really celebrated his birthday. In the past, when she was an old Gus family, Madame Zhao always said that their family was poor. If so many people celebrated their birthdays, how much money would it cost? However, she had actually been secretly celebrating birthdays for the children of the second and third branches. Every time it was Gu Da's or Gu Dahu's children's birthday, they would be able to eat an egg. Their branch didn't have it, but Gu Da Jiang remembered it. He would come back from the county city and buy 2 sweets for the children to eat. Even so, he would always be scolded by Madame Zhao. Therefore, a proper birthday celebration was a luxury for their branch. Now that they were in Yongfu village and had more money, Gu Yundong naturally wanted to make up for what they did not have in the past. Therefore, the next day, she brought the newly made loquat cans to the county city. She went to the shop first. The business in the shop had stabilized, but it was still booming. The rich people in the county city had not given up on buying white sugar here before going to the prefectural city to sell it, even though they could only buy 5 caddies a day. However, white sugar would not be the main product very soon. There would be all kinds of dried fruits and preserved jams. When Zhuangzi saw her coming over, he immediately greeted her with a smile. Gu Yundong nodded slightly. Very good. Now, his smile no longer looked wretched. Shopkeeper Jiang, this is canned loquat. The workshop has just started making it, so there's not many. There might be other canned fruits or dried fruits or fruit jam next. We have to find an opportunity to promote the new products. Think about it in the next 2 days and see how to make it effective. Gu Yundong took out a can, opened it and poured out the pulp for Zhenggang and Zhuangzi to try. The 2 of them took a bite and their eyes lit up. This is delicious. Delicious. Zhuangzi couldn't wait to take a second bite. Gu Yundong patted his hand. He laughed dryly and put the spoon back in embarrassment. He even took a look at Zhenggang. Although Zhenggang's eyes were shining and he looked like he still wanted to eat, he tried his best to restrain himself. Instantly, Zhuangzi felt a little sad. Indeed, there was still a long way to go to become a shopkeeper. The loquat has the effect of moistening the lungs and stopping coughing. The loquat ointment in the pharmacy is quite expensive, and it is not delicious. Boss, there's white sugar in this can of loquat, right? Gu Yundong nodded. Indeed, so the price of this canned loquat cannot be cheap. Boss, don't worry. Even if it's not cheap, there will definitely be many people who will buy it. Zhenggang was very confident. Not only could the loquat be eaten, but the sugar water was also delicious. The wealthy families in the county might even fight for it. Gu Yundong handed the matter of the new products to Zhenggang before bringing the canned food to Qingyuan's school. Madame Gu was very happy to see her. My husband is in class. He'll be resting in 15 minutes. Take a seat and wait for him. She poured some tea for Gu Yundong and called Qin Anning over to meet her. Qin Anning liked Gu Yundong a lot, especially since she had so much fun at Yongfu village the last time. She yearned to go there again. Gu Yundong smiled. You want to go? Sure. As long as your parents have no objections, you're welcome anytime. Qin Anning turned to look at Mrs. Gu, who sighed and thought to herself that her daughter was definitely born of the wrong gender. She should be a boy. As she was thinking, she saw Qin Wenjing striding over. It's good that you're here. I was thinking of going to Yongfu village to meet you later. Chapter 421, Can't Laugh at Yunshu's Nvel. CM Gu Yundong asked, Are you looking for me? Yes, come with me to the study. Gu Yundong stood up suspiciously and followed Qin Wenjing. When she reached the study, she saw him take out 2 letters. One of them had been opened, and the other was still intact. Qin Wenjing pointed at the opened letter and said, This is General Zhao's reply. It came from the capital. He said that your father did help him catch the bandits back then, but unfortunately, he was transferred back to the capital later. He originally wanted to bring your father along, but your father wanted to stay in Qingyuan Prefecture to look for you, so the two of them parted ways. Even though she was mentally prepared, Yundong was still a little disappointed. Qin Wenjing said, before General Zhao left, he lent Gu Dajiang 30 taels of silver, so his life shouldn't be a problem. However, ever since General Zhao left, he hasn't contacted your father again. Yundong exhaled slowly. Got it. Is there any news from the Xuanhe Prefecture? Qin Wenjing shook his head regretfully. No. Then, she pushed another letter over. This is from Dr. Song. He has already arrived in the capital and entered the Imperial Hospital again. Yundong quickly took the letter and opened it. Song Dijiang's letter was also very simple. He said that he had entered the Imperial Hospital and had also searched the Imperial Pharmacy. Unfortunately, there was no Bimusi. However, he had heard from another Imperial physician in the Imperial Hospital that there seemed to be one in the warehouse of the Wanqing Prefecture. If it was convenient, she could see if she could buy it. A smile appeared on Yundong's face as she became slightly excited. Qin Wenjing took a sip of tea. Seeing this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Why? Is there good news? Yundong nodded repeatedly. Yes, Dr. Song said that there is Bimusi in Wanqing Prefecture. So, you plan to go to Wanqing Prefecture personally? That's right. You're really good at traveling. How long have you been back? Qin Wenjing muttered. When are you preparing to set off? After Yunshu's birthday in a few days. Speaking of the birthday, Yundong suddenly remembered her business here. She put away the letter and asked Qin Wenjing if she could invite Yunshu's classmates to Yongfu village. Qin Wenjing did not care. We'll have to ask the other students. He got someone to bring Yunshu and Bian Yuanji over. The two of them were puzzled at first until they saw Yundong and heard that it was about his birthday celebration. Yunshu almost jumped up. He could even get all his classmates to go to his house. He could not wait to run back to the school and hurriedly invited everyone. After everyone agreed, he ran back to Yundong. The students in the school waited for him to leave. Among them, more than 10 of them had strange expressions. Junkin saw this and called all of them out. He walked to the side and said in a low voice, Yunshu invited us out of goodwill. This time, we can't be as rude as when we visited the Chengning family last time. Everyone nodded. We won't. I really didn't do it on purpose last time. It was my first time going to a village. I didn't know that the house was so dilapidated, so I let it slip. This time, I won't make a fuss and hurt their self-esteem. Yes, we know what we're doing. These 10 or so people were all students from the county city, and 2 of them were from the prefectural city. After all, Qin Wensheng's reputation was not well known. Most of the people who knew of his achievements were from the county city. However, these children had almost never been to the villages below. The one who had left the deepest impression on them was Gao Qingying's family. In the end, they did not pay attention and said something embarrassing. Chapter 422, Yunshu is very poor Znvel. Actually, Yunshu came to school in a carriage every day. There were also servants at home. Originally, no one would associate him with a dilapidated house. But Yunshu said that he was poor every day and was saving copper coins every day. He even promoted his school bag and told others that he was helping the auntie next door in the village expand business. He would collect 10 copper coins as the errand fee. He found every opportunity to say that his eldest sister was the only one in the family who had worked hard to support the family. He had not found his father yet. He wanted to earn money to find his father and treat his mother. He originally planned to owe the tuition fee. Unfortunately, the heartless headmaster of the academy actually did not agree. He almost did not want to come to school, but his eldest sister said that she would pay for him no matter what. In order not to let his sister down, he could only come to the school to work hard. Back then, Gao Qingying had also said that their family's conditions were not good, but the poverty that everyone imagined was completely different from what they had really seen. After such a huge shock, coupled with Yunshu's repeated emphasis, these young and inexperienced students naturally felt that Yunshu might be the poorest child in their school. It was too pitiful. Her elder sister was a heroine. Not only did she provide for Yunshu, but she also sent her cousin over. As for the carriage, they heard from Yunshu that the villagers had to pay for the travel expenses when they took the carriage. It should be a tool for their family to earn money. Also, the clothes of Gu Yunshu's eldest sister, whom they had seen at Jinxiu restaurant last time, should be her best clothes. Thus, when Gu Yunshu and Bian Yuanji returned to class, they met everyone's sympathetic gazes. Yunshu was speechless. Why did everyone look at him differently after he was gone for a while? Could it be that they had some thoughts about him? Xiaoyu even walked up to him and patted his small shoulder heavily. He said, "Yunshu, actually, we don't have high requirements for food and accommodation. For your birthday, longevity noodles are enough." Gu Yunshu thought about it and nodded in agreement. "Yes, I didn't even have eggs in the past. This is my first birthday celebration. I can finally eat longevity noodles." At the thought of this, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He didn't know what was the difference between longevity noodles and ordinary noodles. They should taste better. Everyone immediately felt that this child was too pitiful. Even Gao Qingyuan walked over and held his hand sympathetically. "We can eat less." Gu Yunshu's eyes lit up. He held his hand. "You're the best." Bian Yuanji blinked in confusion. Why did this conversation seem a little strange? Lu Yi was also feeling strange. Although he had never been to Yongfu village, his brother had been there. Moreover, his brother had stayed there for more than half a month. If the living conditions were really that bad, would he be reluctant to come back? Would he brag about how great the Gu family was every day? However, on second thought, Big Brother had a strange personality. Perhaps he liked houses that were leaky? Hence, Louis did not think too much about it. On the other hand, Junkan, being the oldest among them, could not help but sigh when he saw that everyone's thoughts had gone astray. He only reminded everyone to be careful with their words and not make a fuss. He didn't say that Yunshu's family was so poor that they couldn't even afford noodles. What were these little ones thinking? Wake up, okay? If Gu Yunshu's family was really so poor, why would he have servants? Chapter 423, I'm afraid you don't want to live anymore B0s and Vel. CM Gu Yundong did not know that Yunshu had done such a thing in school. She thought that since it was her brother's classmates' first visit here, she naturally had to treat them well. She could start preparing now. Hence, after she was done with Qin Wenjing, she prepared to leave. Before she left 2 cans behind. Those are new fruit cans that are about to be served in our shop. Try it and see if you can sell it. Qin Wenjing returned to his room with the cans in disdain and said to Madame Gu, "Why cans? You might as well send 2 caddies of white sugar." Madame Gu ignored him and studied the cans curiously. She opened a can and poured the pulp into a bowl. Qin Wenjing, who was about to leave, suddenly turned back. When he saw Madame Guest's bright eyes after taking a small bite of loquat, he was stunned. He silently picked up the spoon and took a sip. It was actually quite delicious. It was refreshing and sweet, and the sugar water was abundant. Qin Wenjing couldn't help but eat another one. Then another, and another. Therefore, when Madame Gu slowly swallowed it and wanted to continue eating, she saw that her husband had already drunk the last bit of sugar water. Madame Gu was speechless. He probably didn't want to live anymore. After eating and drinking his fill, Qin Wenjing looked up and realized what he had done. He coughed lightly and tried his best to maintain his image as a school teacher. He pointed at the other can and said, "Well, I'll leave it for you and Anning to eat. Anning is young, and this can is sweet. Tell her to eat less." With that, he left. He would go to Gu Yundong's shop to ask around and see if he could buy a few more cans. These things were not bad. At this moment, Gu Yundong had already carried the cans to the Lu family. Old Master Lu accepted the things. Lu Wei was not around, and the servants of the Lu family said that he had gone to his elder sister's house and had not returned. Gu Yundong went straight back to Yongfu village. Big Chen and Tong Ping went to collect the fruits. Gu Yundong felt that there were still too few people, so she asked Niu Don father to follow them. The work in the workshop began to slowly get on track. Gu Yundong offered lunch to the workers for free. She found 3 efficient old women from the village to start the fire at the stove that had been built at the back of the workshop. There was meat and vegetables for lunch. It was better than what they had at home. This made many people's eyes light up with excitement. There were even people who did not eat at noon and planned to bring the food back to eat secretly at night. Gu Yundong was also very helpless about this. There were a few families that were really poor. Their children were so hungry that their faces were sallow and their bodies were thin. They could not even eat a full meal a day. As adults, how could they eat a large bowl of food in peace? Sometimes, when they looked at the meat slices and thought about their family, they would cry. There was nothing wrong with bringing the food back. In the modern era, there were still many people who brought food back from the canteen. However, she also had a rule that everyone would only get food once. They could bring it back, but if the workers were to starve and delay their work, they would be fired. The workshop could not afford them. After all, the workshop only recruited you and had no intention of supporting your family. This rule dispelled many people's thoughts. At least no one would stay hungry at noon. At most, only some of the food would be brought home at night for the children to taste. With Tongan in charge of the workshop, Gu Yundong was much more relaxed. The next day, Jiang came over with the idea of launching new products in the shop. Not only him, even old Master Lu came. Chapter 424, Planning to open a shop in the Prefectural city B0 CM Old Master Lu had already eaten the can yesterday. He knew that the things that this girl from the Gu family had brought were definitely not ordinary. He had come this time to discuss collaboration with Gu Yundong. Coincidentally, Jiang's plan also had this intention. Boss, I'm thinking that the price of this canned fruit is not cheap. Most of the people who come to our shop to buy candy are servants of those families. Even if these people know that there are new things in Gus, they might not tell their master. After all, white sugar could not compare to clothes and jewelry. They would only know if they went over to try it themselves. Buying 5 caddies of sugar every day. Which rich family's young master had nothing better to do and came here every day? Moreover, these servants could not come to the master usually. Even if they knew that Gus had something called fruit cans, they could not convey it to the master in time. Jiang had thought of sending an invitation to the various families, but that would make it seem as if he was begging others to buy his things. This did not match what the boss said, positioning. Thus, Jiang thought of the Lu family's restaurant. Coincidentally, the Lu family and his boss had a good relationship. Perhaps it was a mutually beneficial matter. He did not expect to meet old Master Lu on the way to Yongfu village. The other party's thoughts coincided with his. Gu Yundong nodded. All right, well, do as you say. As she spoke, she suddenly turned to look at old Master Lu. Uncle Lu, I heard that you've also opened Jinshu restaurant in Shuanhe Prefecture? Old Master Lu was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud. Why? Do you have enough goods here? Do you want to sell them in the restaurant over there? I want to try selling them in the Prefectural city, so that I'll be confident when I open a shop there in the future. Old Master Lu pondered for a moment. That's true. I heard from Lu Wei that you've grown a lot of fruits. The workshop will also grow bigger in the future. This county city won't be able to eat it. There are many big families in the Prefectural city, so it can be sold for a high price. Alright, it just so happens that the restaurants in the Prefectural city lack new products. Your cans come at the right time. However, you have to lower the price for me. Of course. Gu Yundong's price was 120 copper coins for a fruit can. Of course, that was the price in the county. There were at least 6 or 7 loquats and a lot of white sugar in a can. These two things were not cheap. Coupled with the labor transportation fee and the cost of the clay pot, the profit wasn't much compared to white sugar. The price in the prefectural city would definitely be raised. Regardless of whether the customers ate it or gave it as a gift, they would gain face. Gu Yundong and Old Master Lu discussed the supply problem and quietly waited for the feedback from Jinshu restaurant. Just one day later, Yongkang came again. The customers who went to the restaurant to eat were all unsatisfied. Then, they followed Old Master Liu's guidance and ran to Gus. Each of them had a few jars without hesitation. In less than half a day, the canned loquats that had been brought to the shop the day before were all snatched away. Even Qin Wenjing secretly came over to buy 3 big jars and said that his wife and daughter liked them. However, Yongkang had sharp eyes. How could he not know that it was Mr. Qin who liked this? Gu Yundong was also happy. In the following days, she asked Ao Mao and the others to bring the cans from the workshop to the shop and restaurant after they finished practicing every morning. The supply problem in the shop was solved. Soon, it was Gu Yunshu's birthday. Chapter 425, Classmates B0s and Vel. The Gu family had been busy since early in the morning. They had cleaned everything inside and out. Even Xing Jia, Xing Yu, and Xing Lu from the Xing family next door ran over to help. Although Yunshu went to school in the county city, he still played with his good friends every day after school. Especially since the 3 Xing siblings did not have the chance to read and write, Yunshu would teach them every day when he came back. Now that they had learned a lot of words, Madame Dong was overjoyed. She wanted to work harder and earn more money. Perhaps she could send her children to school. She did not think of asking them to take the elementary scholar examination to become a high official. She just felt that it was always good for children to be able to read. Didn't everybody see that even the servants of the Gu family were learning? Tongan was the best and fastest at learning, so he became the manager of the workshop. It could be seen that being literate would definitely be more promising than being illiterate in the future. As Gu Yunshu's friends, they naturally had to come and help him on his birthday. Gu Yundong was also very happy. Early in the morning, she followed Father Tong to send the 2 children to school. Then, she personally went to the market to buy groceries. Yunshu only had 16 classmates in total. Gu Yundong had thought about finding more carriages to transport them. However, she was rejected. Which of the classmates did not have a carriage? Lu Yi asked his coachman to stop the carriage at the school gate and wait for everyone to finish school. 2 carriages were indeed enough. All of them were little kids and were not big. Gu Yundong swept through the county before returning with half a carriage full of things in satisfaction. She had asked Yunshu what he wanted to eat for his birthday. The little guy happily said that he wanted to eat longevity noodles and boiled eggs. Gu Yundong's heart ached when she heard that. These were very ordinary things, but Gu Yunshu had never eaten them during his birthday before, so he was concerned. Gu Yundong did not ask him anything else. She had already drawn up a recipe in her heart. She knew how to make cakes, but there were too many people. She might have to make 2 big cakes. For this reason, she had asked around 2 days in advance to find out where cows could produce milk. When she got home, she pulled Shao Qingyuan over as a coolie and handed him a big bowl of egg whites and white sugar. She smiled and said, "It's time to test your hand's speed. Stir it until it turns into white cream." Shao Qingyuan was a little stunned. Cream. What was that? But whatever Gu Yundong asked him to do, he would do it. It was only when the egg white slowly turned into a white cotton-like shape that Shao Qingyuan was shocked. It turned out that after stirring the egg whites for 15 minutes, it would become like this. His eyes gradually lit up as he looked at Gu Yundong. He felt that she would surprise him from time to time. The Gu family was busy. When the school knew that Yunshu was going to invite everyone to his house for his birthday celebration, Qingyuan simply let them leave school 2 hours early. Seeing the students get into the carriage one by one, Qingyuan actually had the urge to follow them. However, he thought that he was their teacher and would make these students uncomfortable if he went, so he dismissed the idea. After all, he still had to protect his image. When he faced Yundong, he was easily irritable. The 2 carriages entered Yongfu village one after another. Everyone had agreed in advance that they could not make a fuss, and they had to remain calm and low-key after entering the village. However, it was their first time here after all. They still lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. Yongfu village had changed a lot in the past 6 months, but most of the houses still looked very dilapidated. Chapter 426, Stunned Schoolmates B0s and Vel. Seeing this, everyone pitied Yunshu even more. However, before they reached the Gu residence, Xiaoyu couldn't help but ask, Yunshu, where exactly is your home? It's at the foot of the mountain. Let's go further in. We'll be there soon. Yunshu could not help but sway when he thought about how he would be able to eat longevity noodles soon. Big Sister said that she had personally made longevity noodles for him to eat. It would definitely be a delicacy. At the foot of the mountain? Even people like Gao Qingyuan, who also lived in the countryside, could not help but pity him. The foot of the mountain was the worst position in the village. The houses of the poorest families in their village were all at the foot of the mountain. Yunshu did not see their expressions at all. He was still imagining his longevity noodles. Finally, the carriage slowly came to a stop. The people in the carriage looked at each other. When they saw Yunshu get out of the carriage, they stepped off the stools one by one. Then, they widened their eyes and looked at the green brick house in front of them in shock. This, how could such a house appear in the village? And it was at the foot of the mountain? Could this be Yunshu's house? No, everyone shook their heads decisively. They looked left and right and saw an identical green brick tiled house, as well as the farmyard beside it. Phew, it seemed that this was Yunshu's house. It looked fine and not very shabby. They were about to walk towards the Zhang family's courtyard. Unexpectedly, a small figure suddenly ran out of the green brick house and rushed towards them. Second brother, cousin. The young lady hugged Yunshu and raised her flour-covered hand to wipe Yunshu's face. Before he could react, he immediately ran back. Yunshu was speechless. His younger sister was becoming more and more mischievous. He wiped his face helplessly with a handkerchief before turning around. When he saw everyone's stunned expressions, he was instantly confused. What's wrong? Wasn't it just flour that his sister rubbed on him? Why did it seem like they had seen something strange? Or was it that they were all mesmerized by their little sister's cute appearance? That won't do. My little sister is still young. How can these people be so dirty? Yunshu pulled a long face. Just as he was about to educate them seriously, he heard Junkin laugh and say, "Let's go. It's inappropriate to stand at the door. There are people watching us." He was the first to react. He knew it. Yunshu's family background was definitely not bad. Yunshu remembered that she was the host and quickly brought everyone in. One by one, the children followed behind her in a daze. It was not until they stepped into the house that they suddenly came back to their senses. "Yunshu, is this your house?" "Yes." Yunshu nodded. But didn't you say that your family is poor?" "Yes, I'm very poor. My family is very poor. I've only been to a few restaurants." "Didn't you say you've never eaten longevity noodles before?" "Yes, in the past, my grandmother didn't let me eat it. However, we escaped and came here. Now, the one in charge is my elder sister. My elder sister said that she would cook noodles for me. You guys should eat less later. Go eat meat. Don't eat my noodles." Everyone was speechless. Why did they feel like they had been tricked? They were furious and wanted to criticize him, but they realized that everything seemed to be their imagination. No, Yunshu's perception of poverty was untraditional. Chapter 427, Yunshu's Toy B0s and Vel. The little kids felt that they should properly teach him what it meant to be truly poor. They had only seen poor people pretending to be rich, but they had never seen anyone living in a green brick house and using servants say that they had to work hard to earn 10 copper coins. However, as soon as they walked into the courtyard, they could not help but be stunned by the scenery inside. There were many lanterns hanging under the corridor. There were swings in the front yard, trellises, date trees, and pomegranate trees. There were beautiful birds folded with colored paper in the corridor, frogs, butterflies, and all kinds of small animals. Wow, so beautiful. Are these flowers? They're folded with paper. They look like flowers. Smells good. I know where the kitchen is. Yunshu was also a little dumbfounded. When he went out in the morning, they were not there. Now, he realized that the entire house had been decorated. His birthday wish was to eat a bowl of longevity noodles and a boiled egg, but Big Sister had gone through so much trouble to give him such a big surprise. Yunshu wanted to cry, and then he really did. He kept wiping his eyes with his small hands. Bien Yuanji, who was watching from the side, was envious. He still remembered that his birthday was a few months ago. At that time, he didn't even have a full meal and could only drink 2 mouthfuls of cold water. Now that he saw Yunshu crying, he hurried forward to comfort him. You should be happy about your birthday. Everyone is looking at you. Don't cry anymore. Yundong also walked out of the kitchen and looked at the little guy standing under the porch. Big Sister prepared everything meticulously. Don't you like it? I like it, I like it. He wiped his tears and quickly ran over to hug her waist. Big Sister, I like it so much. I'm so happy. I've never been so happy. Actually, I just want to eat a bowl of longevity noodles. Yundong stroked his head. There's longevity noodles, boiled eggs, and birthday cake. What's a birthday cake? The child looked up in confusion and blinked. Yundong did not answer. Instead, she pushed him. All right, you'll entertain your classmates first. You'll know when dinner starts later. Oh. Yunshu finally realized that he seemed to have neglected the guests. He immediately smiled in embarrassment and turned to bring his classmates to his room. Yunshu's room was very large. It was divided into an inner and outer room. There was a desk, a bed, and a bookcase. There were some books on the cabinet that they usually read, but there were also books that involved other aspects. Lu Yi even found a novel inside and was so shocked that he almost threw it out. Madame Cui knocked on the door and came in with sugar water. Tong Shuetao followed behind with a pile of things in her hands. As soon as she entered, she said to Yunshu, "It's still early. Everyone can relax here. This is a jigsaw puzzle. Second young master knows how to play it. This is the Luban lock. You can try to undo it and put it back together. This is the chessboard. Everyone can play chess." She placed the things on the bed first and then spread 2 carpets on the ground so that everyone could sit on them. Jiang and the others were stunned as they watched Madame Cui and Tong Shuetao come and go. Their gazes slowly shifted to the pile of things. In the next moment, everyone rushed forward and targeted Luban lock. Only Lu Yi tilted his head and curiously looked at the puzzle in his hand. What is this? How do I play it? It was something he had never seen before. It looked even more novel than the Luban lock. Chapter 428, So Much Food B0s and Vel. Yunshu walked over and took out one of the puzzle pieces. He placed it on the bed and took out a piece of paper. He said to Lu Yi, "Look, this is a picture. The person on this picture is me. This picture was drawn by Yundong. It was a small picture of Yunshu with a big head and a small body. He looked exceptionally cute. Yunshu was very proud. He straightened his back and introduced, "You have to put all the pieces of wood together to make me. Isn't that interesting? There are rules and techniques to this. Let me tell you, I'm very familiar with this. If you don't understand, I can teach you." He pointed at the other pictures. "There are also pictures of Yunshu, our family, and this house. Let me tell you, the jigsaw puzzle of this house is very difficult. Do you think the colors are all the same? You don't even know where to put the bricks. This is too difficult for you. For the first time, we can start from the simple ones. For example, my picture. First, finish me, then challenge the difficult ones." Louis glanced at him and thought for a moment. Then, he slowly picked up the jigsaw puzzle of the house. "Yunshu, you'll lose me like this. I'm telling you that you'll regret it. Don't cry and beg me later." However, when the others heard his explanation, they stopped what they were doing and surrounded him. Xiaoyu was very loyal. "Yunshu, let me compliment your picture. Wow, this picture is so beautiful. Who drew it? Can they draw one for me too?" This was drawn by Big Sister. Big Sister was very busy. How could she help everyone draw? Therefore, Yunshu decisively refused. "You can draw this yourself. Didn't the teacher just teach you this drawing method? It'll be fine when you're familiar with it. When you're done, I can find someone to help you make a jigsaw puzzle." Xiaoyu was a little disappointed. He felt that even if he was proficient, he wouldn't be able to draw like this. Yunshu was very proud. Who asked him to have a good sister? Just as she was thinking about it, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was Tong Shuetao who came in. The moment the door opened, a fragrance wafted in crazily. The little kid's gazes focused on the tray in Tong Shuetao's hand almost at the same time. She walked over with a smile. In fact, she was also swallowing her saliva. She could only desperately hold her breath to prevent the fragrance from entering her nostrils. "Our miss said that there's still some time before dinner. She's afraid that everyone will be hungry, so she wants you to eat something first." She placed the tray on the table. "This is fried chicken drumsticks, chicken wings, fries, and chips. You can eat them with this sauce. There are also melon seeds, peanuts, and lollipops here. If you want to eat sweet food, there are canned loquats, canned peaches, and dried fruit. By the way, each of you can have a portion of this double-skinned milk. Everyone, try it first." The children were speechless. Their eyes were about to pop out. They had naturally eaten good food, but they had never seen or heard of so many good things. Especially the two from the Prefectural city. They thought that there would be nothing surprising with their knowledge and experience. However, they had never heard of the puzzle before. What was this fried chicken drumstick, chicken wings, and chips? What was the can and lollipop? What was this double-skinned milk? They all looked so delicious. Chapter 429, Happy Birthday B0s and Vel. There was actually not much food. The children ate a little to stop their hunger. Yundong knew that most of the children in the future liked to eat KFC. It was fine to eat it once in a while if it was hygienic. Tong Shuetao put down the things and left. The children gathered around the table and began to sniffle. "Smells good. I'm sure it's good. Yunshu, can we eat?" Yunshu was also stunned. He had eaten cans and lollipops. Eldest sister had also fried chicken drumsticks for him to eat, but what was this double-skinned milk? However, he was the host. He immediately nodded and said seriously, "Of course you can eat. Everyone, don't stand on ceremony. Just make yourselves at home." The kids thanked him one after another. Then, the eldest, Yongkang, handed the food over one by one. They took a mouthful of double-skinned milk. Oh, it was smooth and fragrant. How could there be such a delicious thing? Everyone's eyes lit up. By the time they came back to their senses, they had almost finished it and were instantly embarrassed. Yunshu called everyone over to play and even went out to bring Xingjia and Xinglu in. The two of them were still a little timid in front of the students from the school. They stood in the corner and did not dare to speak. Fortunately, Yongkang saw the desire for knowledge in their eyes. He became a little teacher and excitedly taught them how to read. Later on, Dan also came over. He was still studying in town and his school hours were late. Yunshu had always had a good relationship with him. They often practiced calligraphy and studied together after returning home. Especially after Chen Liang's eldest son returned, there was an additional family in the house. Occasionally, there would be a commotion. Dan was impatient and would go to Yunshu's house to study together most of the time. The Gu family's house was huge, and Yunshu's study was even more spacious. The lighting was also good. In addition, he had a good friend with him, so it was easier for him to learn here. At this moment, Yunshu's room was very lively. Everyone was playing games that they had never played before. They ate snacks that they had never eaten before and felt as if they had sublimated. They had originally wanted to educate Yunshu about poverty. Now that they had eaten his food, it was not appropriate for them to speak. However, Yunshu was really blessed to have so much delicious food. After more than an hour, Yundong finally let everyone out for dinner. In fact, they were already half full after eating the snacks. However, when they smelled the fragrance coming from the flower hall, they could not help but swallow their saliva. The sky had already darkened slightly, and the lanterns under the corridor had been lit. They were indescribably beautiful. Yunshu walked in front, followed by more than 10 classmates. He actually had the aura of a boss, if he had grown a little taller. As soon as they entered the reception hall, they saw Yundong holding a strange, beautiful, and sweet thing in his hand. There were 6 thin candles on it as she slowly walked to his side. Yunshu, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Shu. Second brother, happy birthday. 3 voices rang out one after another. Through the hazy candlelight, Yunshu looked at his eldest sister, mother, and younger sister standing in front of him. His heart suddenly swelled. Some kind of emotion surged fiercely, making his eyes sore and swollen. In his mind, he could not help but think of last year's birthday. Because his father had stuffed a sweet into his mouth and second aunt had seen it, he had been scolded by his grandmother for the entire day. Chapter 430, 3 Wishes Be Zeros and Vel. At that time, he thought that he would never celebrate his birthday again. He was not happy at all. It was not good at all. But looking at the smiling faces of the 3 closest people in front of him, Yunshu suddenly choked. Yundong quickly handed the cake in her hand to Shao Qingyuan and squatted down to rub his head. Everyone is looking at you. You can't cry. Big sister, I am, he thought that he only needed to eat a bowl of longevity noodles. He did not expect Big sister to put in so much effort. He was really happy. Big sister, you're so good. I'm so happy to be your younger brother. Yundong was also very happy. She still remembered how he looked when she first came. He was skinny and had a big head. He was obviously very tired, but he still wanted to take on the responsibility of the entire family. He wanted to cry, but he smiled at her desperately as if it was not difficult at all as long as his family was by his side. At first, Yundong thought that as long as Madame Yang and the other 2 did not drag her down, she would do her best to protect them and let them grow up safely. When did it start? She had been paying attention to the 3 of them and always wanted to give them the best. The warmth that surged from the depths of her heart seemed to have changed her a lot. She had really felt the feelings between her family and she would subconsciously repay them. I'm also very happy that you're my younger brother. She led Yunshu to a stool at the side and sat down. She took the cake from Shao Qingyuan again and placed it on the table in front of him. Then, she met his puzzled gaze and smiled. This is the birthday cake I told you about. Come, close your eyes and make 3 wishes. Then, blow out the candles. Your wishes will come true. Yunshu's eyes lit up. His eyes, which had just been washed with tears, were especially lively. Really? Just make the wishes. He immediately closed his eyes obediently. My first wish is, you don't have to say it out. Fine. He made a new wish. He was very pious in his heart. His first wish was to find his father as soon as possible and have a family reunion. His second wish was for his mother's illness to be cured quickly. His third wish was for his family to be safe and happy forever. After that, he opened his eyes. Yunshu did not know that his first wish would soon come true. Yundong saw that he had opened his eyes and was about to ask him to blow out the candles when she saw that the little girl beside him was also making a wish with her eyes closed. She immediately smiled and simply waited for her until she opened her eyes in satisfaction. Only then did she ask Yunshu to blow out the candles. The cake was sweet and rare. Yundong saw that there were a lot of people, so she made 2 big pieces. At this moment, each of them cut a small piece and ate it. Not to mention the others, even Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but narrow his eyes. This cake. He had made it before, but it was not easy to make cream. The group was in a good mood. Yunshu ate the longevity noodles that he had been longing for. No one fought with him. After all, they were already full from eating everything else. At night, they even agreed to walk around the village to digest their food and send Nyodan home. They walked around the village before returning to the Gu residence. Yundong arranged rooms for everyone. As everyone was small, it was not a problem for a few people to share a room. Under the warm blanket that emitted the smell of sunlight, everyone still felt like they were dreaming. Yunshu's birthday was too special. The next day, Yundong prepared cans for each of Yunshu's classmates as a return gift. This time, they each gave Yunshu a gift. It was not considered expensive, but it represented their goodwill. Then, she sent them to the carriages and got someone to ride them back to school. When the carriage left and she returned to the Gu family, she saw Shao Qingyuan standing at the entrance of the Shao family's house and talking to the Jiang family's escort. He seemed to have a difficult expression. Chapter 431, Yundong leaves B0's Nvel. CM Shao Qingyuan also saw her. After nodding slightly, he continued to talk to the escort. Not long after, the escort passed through the door. Shao Qingyuan walked towards her. He had something to say, but he didn't know how to start. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Yundong could not help but laugh. What's wrong? If there's anything difficult, just say it. Shao Qingyuan rubbed his temples and said after a while, the Jiang family's escort agency is sending a batch of goods to Qingyuan Prefecture. They also have to transport something back. It's a long journey and they don't have enough manpower. They want me to help. If it was in the past, Shao Qingyuan had nothing to worry about and would just go, but now, he was about to have a family. It would take at least a month or 2 to deliver goods to Qingyuan Prefecture. He had just confirmed his relationship with her and did not want to be separated. However, the Jiang family's bodyguard agency had interacted with him a lot in the past 6 months and their relationship was not bad. The manager of Gus, Yongkang, was from the Jiang family's bodyguard agency. In addition, when he asked a martial master to come to his house to teach Amao and the others martial arts, the other party did not even decline and agreed readily. Therefore, now that the Jiang family's bodyguard agency needed help, he could not just reject them. Yundong did not expect this. Her expression became strange. She pulled her hair that was hanging by her side and looked hesitant. Actually, I also have something to tell you. What is it? Shao Qingyuan was stunned. Yundong lowered her head slightly and said in a low voice, a few days ago, I received a letter from Dr. Song. He said that there may be by Musi in Wanqing Prefecture. I want to make a trip to Wanqing Prefecture after Yunshu's birthday. Actually, as soon as she received the news, she wanted to tell Shao Qingyuan, but she didn't know how to. Shao Qingyuan was stunned. She was going to Wanqing Prefecture? Then I'll reject the Jiang family's escort agency and accompany you there, he said without hesitation. Yundong quickly stopped her. Don't. The Jiang family's bodyguard agency has helped you a lot. It's rare that they need your help. They definitely can't find anyone else. She thought for a moment and asked, when will they set off? In 2 days. Then they'll set off in 2 days too. I happen to pass by Qingyuan Prefecture on my way to Wanqing Prefecture. We can travel together for a while. Shao Qingyuan frowned. Are you going to finish the rest of the journey alone? Yundong nodded. You don't trust me? Of course I do. Shao Qingyuan was a little vexed. Why did things happen so coincidentally? Not only did he have to deliver the goods to Qingyuan Prefecture, but there was also a batch of goods that had to be transported back in time. Otherwise, he could accompany her there. He knew that she had the ability to settle these things alone, but Shao Qingyuan wanted to share the burden with her. He was her future husband. He hoped that he would be the one to experience everything with her in the future. In the end, they could only do as Yundong said after some discussion. There were still 2 days left. Yundong's arrangements were enough. Moreover, with the previous experience, no one would panic anymore. Only at the workshop, there were more people, and the person in charge had also changed to Tongan. This was not a big deal. After a few days of observation, Tongan was getting more and more proficient. In the end, Yundong brought a lot of canned food and dried fruits. Most of them were placed in her space, while the rest were placed in the carriage. This time, under Tong Shuetao's strong request, she brought her along. Shao Qingyuan also brought Ah Mao and Ah Zhu along to let them see the world. The other 2 stayed at home. That morning, Yundong got into the carriage while Madame Yang and the others reluctantly bade her farewell. She left Yongfu village. As soon as she left, someone came looking for her. Chapter 432, Children Are Debts Be Zeros and Vel. Madame Zhou had made up her mind to look for Yundong. She did not even tell Chen Liang. But when she reached the Gu residence, she saw that Aunt Ku and the others had just turned around. Yundong had already left. Aunt Ku invited her in. She shook her head, forcing a smile on her face. Aunt Ku had also heard a little about what had happened in her family recently. Seeing this, she could not help but raise her eyebrows and ask, "You're looking for Yundong for your first son, right?" Madame Zhou laughed dryly. No. Whether it's true or not, I'm afraid you have to wait for Yundong to come back first." Madame Zhou knew that Tongan was in charge of the workshop now. Tongan was a servant of the Gu family and had the right to manage it. However, he could not recruit people without Yundong's instructions. She could ask Yundong for help because of Yundong's friendship with the Chen family, but she did not have much of a relationship with Tong, and Madame Zhou did not know what to feel. She felt vexed and relieved. She had no choice but to come over because she was annoyed by her eldest son at home. Seeing that his second son was becoming more and more promising in the Gu family, collecting fruits everywhere outside, and even buying some snacks for the children to eat when he came back, Chen Liang valued him more and more. The eldest son's life was too smooth sailing in the past. After the work in town was gone, he came back and was laughed at by many people. Especially when he was working in the fields, his energy was not even comparable to hers. He could even knock his feet with a hoe. He was not someone born to do this at all. In addition, his wife was not someone who could endure hardship. Every day, she would complain that she was tired even when cooking. When feeding pigs and chickens, she despised the dirt. For this, the second daughter-in-law's face darkened. As for their son, he was also studying in town now. He was 2 years older than Nyo Dan and lived in his grandfather's house. He was quite obedient. The atmosphere in the house was getting tenser and tenser. The two brothers even quarreled yesterday. This had never happened before, which made Madame Zhou anxious. She wondered if she could ask Gu Yundong for help. After Madame Zhou left, Aunt Ku shook her head. Fortunately, she did not have any children. Otherwise, she would still have to worry about them when she was old. Looking at Madame Zhou, she used to be so energetic. Her eldest son had only been back for a few months, but she looked like she had aged a few years. Aunt Ku shook her head and turned to enter. Gu Yundong had already followed Shao Qingyuan to the Jiang family's bodyguard agency. This was her first time here. The Jiang family's bodyguard agency was indeed not big and there were not many escorts, but all of them were energetic and seemed to be loyal. Shao Qingyuan had said 2 days ago that Gu Yundong would travel with them. Hence, no one was surprised to see Gu Yundong. Moreover, because Yongkang was the shopkeeper of Gus, Yongkang's wife warmly served her tea and brought out the snacks she had made for her to eat. Gu Yundong had met her before. Previously, during the New Year, Yongkang had brought her to Yongfu village to celebrate the New Year. She was a straightforward and generous aunt. The people from the escort agency were all preparing outside. The team would set off after 7 o'clock. Gu Yundong chatted with Yongkang's wife in the hall for a while before walking leisurely to the courtyard. She watched as everyone carried the things to the carriage. She moved closer to Shao Qingyuan and asked, "What are you bringing to Qingyuan Prefecture this time?" Shao Qingyuan's expression was complicated as he looked at the carriage in front of him in silence. After a long time, he said, "Wine." "Wine?" Gu Yundong was about to ask something when she heard a familiar voice outside. Chapter 433, Meeting the Tao Family B0s and Vel. CM Gu Yundong had just turned his head when the other party saw her. He immediately smiled. "Boss Gu, you're here too." "Young Master Tao." Gu Yundong nodded slightly. She looked down on Tao Xing, especially after he lost to Lu Wei. However, Tao Feng knew the ways of the world. When Gus opened for business, he even came to support them and gave them gifts. Later, he also asked the servants at home to buy a lot of white sugar. "I haven't seen Boss Gu for a long time. Gus seems to have a few new canned fruits recently. They taste very good. It's just that they're too in demand. I want to buy some for others, but I can't buy them." Tao Feng shook his head regretfully. Gu Yundong was about to answer when Shao Qingyuan suddenly said, "Let's go over there to help." Gu Yundong felt that something was wrong with his expression just now. No, it should be said that it had happened before when they met the Tao family. Did he have any grudges with the Tao family? Gu Yundong nodded at Tao Feng and left with Shao Qingyuan. Shao Qingyuan had indeed gone to help load the goods. Gu Yundong stood behind him and watched as he busied himself. After he carried one of the jars of wine into the carriage, she asked, "Is this wine from the Tao family? Is it their wine that needs to be sent to Qingyuan Prefecture?" "Yes, they're said to be newly brewed. There are only 4 jars. There were also some other things. They were transported by the way. The most important merchandise was only 4 jars of wine from the Tao family." Gu Yundong tilted her head and asked him with a smile, "You know the Tao family?" "I don't know them." Shao Qingyuan turned around. When he saw her tilt her head, he actually felt that she was a little cute. The gloom in his heart just now was suddenly swept away. He couldn't help but look around. When he saw that no one was looking in his direction, he took her hand. He gently rubbed it twice before saying, "About the Tao family. I haven't thought of how to say it yet. I'll tell you in the future." Gu Yundong glared at him. This person was always finding opportunities to interact with her. He was getting more and more shameless. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but laugh. Someone from the courtyard called out to them, "Qingyuan, Miss Gu, let's go." Gu Yundong retracted her hand. Shao Qingyuan was a little annoyed. Why did someone ruin his plans every time? The convoy had already been prepared. There were only 3 carriages. Including Gu Yundong's carriage, there were 4 carriages. It was not a big team. There were only 6 escorts, including Shao Qingyuan. Mao and Zhu were there to gain experience. When the convoy set off, Tao Feng was still standing at the entrance of the courtyard. When he saw Escort Wang, who was in charge of the team this time, he said, "Thank you for your trouble. I wish you a safe journey. Don't worry, young Master Tao. We will definitely deliver the items safely." Escort Wang was ambitious and his gaze was firm. With a wave of his hand, he walked out of the escort agency in a grand manner. The escorts behind also followed with their heads held high. Gu Yundong was speechless. It was as if they were going out to fight. Only Shao Qingyuan continued to walk past Tao Feng without looking aside. He was in Gu Yundong's carriage. Sometimes, he would drive the carriage, and sometimes, Tong Shuetao would drive the carriage. He would directly enter the carriage, and touch her small hand. The other people in the convoy were all men, and they could be considered half martial artists. When they went out, they did not pay much attention to the distinction between men and women. Especially since the 2 of them were engaged. It was normal for a man to take care of his fiancée. The carriage passed by the Xuanhe Prefecture and stayed overnight. Gu Yundong went to look at the wall with eldest Aunt Gu and the others' portraits. Chapter 434, Not Good Be Zeros and Vel. Seeing that there were several notices blocking the portraits, Gu Yundong frowned slightly and reached out to tear them off and paste them to the side. Later on, she even went to Aunt Kes' house and asked the neighbors nearby. Unfortunately, the neighbors said that no one had come to look for Aunt Ku, so Gu Yundong could only leave regretfully. Unexpectedly, as soon as she left, a woman returned home. This person happened to be the person who saw Mrs. Ren of the Zhou mansion that day. The next day, when the convoy left the Xuanhe Prefecture, the accommodation conditions for the rest of the journey were much worse. Sometimes, they had to stay outside. The convoy traveled fast. In fact, they had already tried their best to take care of the 2 girls, Gu Yundong and Tong Shuetao. However, they had to send the goods to their destination as soon as possible before they could be at ease. Shao Qingyuan could not bear it. He had wanted to ask her not to follow the convoy several times, but Gu Yundong had rejected him. In any case, she was already used to it. In the past, not only did she stay outside when she fled, but she could not even sleep. Now that Shao Qingyuan was by her side, she could sleep especially soundly in the carriage at night. There was nothing bitter about it. Tong Shuetao was even more unwilling. She could learn martial arts from these escorts. How could she give up such a rare opportunity? However, with Gu Yundong around, the escorts had a sumptuous meal. In the past, when they went out, they were all rough men. Not only was the food they ate hard, but it also tasted especially bad. Even if someone cooked, it was still torture. It was either too salty or too tasteless. It was better to eat dry food. With Gu Yundong and Tong Shuetao around, their culinary skills were very good. Since they had to eat anyway, it was fine to make more. They had brought rice, noodles, vegetable oil. The escort sect would also take the initiative to give them some money for the food. In any case, the Tao family had given them a lot of money for this trip. Escort Wang especially liked Gu Yundong's cooking. When the carriage was parked in the wilderness, he would often run to her side and squat down to take a look. It's a pity that we will reach Qingyuan Prefecture in 2 days. We can't enjoy Miss Gus cooking anymore. You've been watching for so long, but you still haven't learned it? Gu Yundong stirred the vegetable porridge twice and asked Tong Shuetao to go to the carriage to take out the pickled vegetables she had made. Escort Wang shook his head. This really requires talent. My hand is no different from my foot. It's really no good. As he spoke, he slapped his palm hard. Gu Yundong was speechless. It was Shao Qingyuan who pushed him to the side. Go and look after the goods. Don't be lazy. Hey, kid, I'm at least 12 years older than you. Can you show me some respect? Escort Wang snorted unhappily. The other escorts at the side roared with laughter. Brother Wang, you said it yourself. We'll be arriving at Qingyuan Prefecture in 2 days. Qingyuan is going to be separated from Miss Gu, yet you still disturb the couple. You're too thick-skinned. Isn't that so? Your wife isn't around, so you specially went to sabotage other couples. How can you be so shameless? Someone shouted at Gu Yundong, Miss Gu, don't let him eat your porridge. Gu Yundong had interacted with the escorts in the escort agency for a long time and was very familiar with them. She quite liked these people. All of them treated her like a younger sister or a junior. Other than having to make her cook, they did not need her to worry about anything else. She smiled and was about to serve the porridge. Suddenly, Mao, who had gone to the forest to relieve himself, ran over quickly. Young master, miss, bad news. I saw a few people with masks on coming this way. Chapter 435, Gu Yundong who is highly aspired B0s and Vel. CM upon hearing this, the escorts, who had been smiling just now, suddenly stood up. Their expressions instantly became serious, and they looked ready to fight. Escort Wang directly said to Shao Qingyuan, hurry up and bring Miss Gu and the others to the forest to hide. Wang, look after the goods. It was too late to leave with the goods now. Instead of panicking, it was better to prepare for war. Then, he turned around and asked Mao, did you see how many people there were? About a dozen. Mao's face was still a little pale. He knew that trouble was coming. Although he had learned a little martial arts, he was still not a match for his enemies in a real life and death battle. Escort Wang frowned. Why would someone rob us? This road has been very safe since the disaster. Besides, the things they were protecting this time were not expensive. However, there was no time for him to think too much now. He glanced at the escorts. Protect yourselves. Fa and Wang responded and walked to the carriage of goods. Shao Qingyuan also led Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao into the forest at the side. Gu Yundong was skilled. She wanted to stay, but on second thought, she left with Tong Shuitao and Shao Qingyuan. After Shao Qingyuan brought them over and hid them, he asked Mao and Zhu to stay behind and protect them. Then, he quickly walked out. As expected, he saw that Escort Wang had already fought with the dozen or so masked men. Although Escort Wang and the others were experienced and skilled in dealing with enemies, it was difficult for 2 fists to fight 4 hands. They were starting to be at a disadvantage. Fa and Wang, who were beside the truck, were surrounded by 5 or 6 people. Fa's arm had already been cut. Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes and immediately ran to the side of the carriage to kick away the person who was about to slash Wang. As soon as he joined, the situation eased a little. Escort Wang slowly heaved a sigh of relief, and Fa and Wang finally smiled. Gu Yundong and the others hid behind a large rock. Although Mao and the others were nervous, they were unwilling to just hide behind and watch helplessly. After a while, he finally couldn't help but say, Miss, let Shuitao protect you. Zhu and I will help. You'll be courting death if you go, Gu Yundong said coldly. Can't you see that they kill others without batting an eyelid? Escort Wang is already injured. You haven't even touched your sabers. How can you fight them to the death? Mao scratched his head and thought for a while. We can smash them with rocks. Zhu also nodded. There are many thick sticks here. If we sneak attack from behind, we can at least knock out a few. Tong Shuitao scolded them, come on, you're not going to help. You're going to add trouble. You might even need the future master to protect you. Just as she finished speaking, she exclaimed softly, Miss, they're too despicable. The three of them surrounded the future master and attacked him together. Pfft, they almost hit him. Mao became even more anxious. Miss, quickly think of a way. That's right. We can't just watch helplessly. Zhu suddenly hated himself for learning martial arts too slowly recently. Miss, you've always been smart. There must be a way. As the three of them spoke, they turned around and placed all their hopes on Yundong. However, the next moment, the three of them were stunned. Wait, when did the crossbow in Miss' hand appear? Why didn't they see it? Yundong held a long-handled watermelon knife that was specially used to cut zombies in her previous life. She aimed it at the back of the person who wanted to kill Afa. Then, she jumped up onto the carriage. The reins of the carriage had already been cut off. This was to prevent the robbers from taking the carriage away. Yundong blocked the knife as she reached into the carriage. He touched the goods inside and put them away slightly. The 4 jars of wine were all put into her space. Then, she jumped down from the carriage as if nothing had happened and slashed at a robber in front of her. She deliberately let the other robber into the carriage. Fa and escort Wang saw it and their expressions changed drastically. They rushed over to guard it. Unexpectedly, when the robber lifted the curtain, he only saw an empty carriage. However, his back was slashed by Shao Qingyuan, who had rushed behind him. Chapter 437, How Could There Be No Goods? B0s and Vel. The robber endured the pain and rolled down from the carriage. Then, he shouted at the robber leader, Boss, we've been tricked. There's nothing in the carriage. The boss was stunned. What did you say? The carriage is empty. We've been tricked. The boss' expression changed drastically. He looked at the situation in front of him. Only one of the escorts had fallen, but his side had suffered heavy losses. If they continued fighting, they would not be able to gain anything, especially when there were no goods. Therefore, he suddenly forced escort Wang back with a slash and said to the others, retreat first. The robbers were already a little tired from fighting. Seeing this, they all turned to run. The escorts did not chase after him. Escort Wang hurriedly went to look at Wang, who was lying on the ground. Seeing that he was still breathing, escort Wang heaved a sigh of relief. When other escorts had come to take care of him, he came to look at the carriage without a word. The robber just said that there was no stock in the carriage? How could there be no stock? Could it be that someone had already taken it away? The main mission of an escort was to protect the goods. He could lose his life, but he could not lose the goods. Seeing that he was about to get into the carriage, Yundong immediately went up. When no one was paying attention, she put all 4 jars of wine back. Therefore, when escort Wang lifted the curtain of the carriage, he saw that there was no problem with the goods they wanted to protect this time. The goods stayed inside quietly like sleeping children. He was dumbfounded. He lowered the curtain of the carriage and opened it again in disbelief. He was relieved to see that the goods were still there. Strange, the goods are clearly still here. Why did the robber say that there was nothing? Yundong pretended that she did not know anything and said, maybe he saw wrongly? Or maybe that person was not in cahoots with the robbers and deliberately said that. Escort Wang did not know how to explain it, so he could only accept this explanation for the time being. Only Shao Qingyuan quietly glanced at Yundong. When the robber approached the carriage, he was afraid that Yundong would be in danger, so he chased after him. Therefore, when that person lifted the curtain to take a look, he knew very well if there was anything inside. But Shao Qingyuan did not say anything. He just walked to Yundong's side and sized her up. Are you injured? Yundong shook her head. I'm fine. The next moment, she frowned. Are you injured? Shao Qingyuan's arm had been cut. It did not look very deep, but the blood had stained a large part of his sleeve. Miss, young master, we're back. At this moment, Mao and the other two ran out of the forest quickly. It seemed that they had already dealt with the two robbers and were not injured. Yundong could not care less. She quickly went to her carriage to take down the medical kit that she had prepared. Then, she cut the fabric on Shao Qingyuan's arm with a pair of scissors and washed his wound. After disinfecting it with alcohol, she carefully applied medicine and wrapped it in gauze. She wrapped the wound up like a dumpling, layer by layer, just like when his palm was scratched. Shao Qingyuan quietly let her move. He looked at her lowered eyes and smiled in satisfaction. However, this peace was soon broken. There was an escort calling Ah Wang's name in a panic. The situation looked terrible. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan turned around and saw that Ah Wang had already woken up. However, his face was pale as he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He was not the only one who was injured. All the escorts present were injured. Even Escort Wang was limping. Chapter 438, What Shao Qingyuan Did Be Zeros and Vel. CM Yundong hurriedly ran over to check on Ah Wang. However, she was not a doctor. Although she had prepared a complete medical kit, it was obvious that Ah Wang had suffered internal injuries. The escort agency had also prepared all kinds of medicine for injuries, but the medicine for internal injuries had been knocked to the ground in the fight just now. At this moment, they had all been trampled. On the other hand, Shao Qingyuan went forward and looked at Ah Wang carefully. Then, he turned around and got into the carriage. After a while, he took out a small porcelain bottle and handed it to Escort Wang. This is a pill I made myself. It's for internal injuries. If you trust me, you can give it a try. You made your own pills? Not only Escort Wang, but even Yundong was shocked. No, since when did he know how to make pills? Escort Wang was a little hesitant, but Ah Wang could not help but spit out another mouthful of blood. The situation was a little bad. He gritted his teeth. Seeing that Ah Wang agreed, he directly let him eat it. Yundong immediately looked at Ah Wang nervously. He was a little excited. Her Shao Qingyuan actually knew how to make medicine. Was he so talented? Shao Qingyuan quietly held her hand, but Yundong did not notice. The medicine seemed to be very good. After Ah Wang ate it, he felt much better. Although his face was still pale and he was in low spirits, he felt that it was not as difficult to breathe as before. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The others had all suffered external injuries, so everyone was experienced. Ah Wang was taken to the carriage, and someone took care of the aftermath. However, Escort Wang and the others were very curious. Why would someone come to rob them? The Tao family's 4 jars of wine actually attracted the robbers to barge into the official road openly. This was not ordinary at all. As Escort Wang bandaged his wound, he said, ever since the disaster, the road from the Shuanha Prefecture to the Qingyuan Prefecture has been very calm. I've never heard of anyone robbing the travelers here. Furthermore, these people attacked without saying a word. Their goal was very clear. It was the Tao family's 4 jars of wine. What's the name of that wine? If it's really that valuable, why would the Tao family hand it to our escort agency? Moreover, they didn't demand the number of escorts and just let us go. Yundong was also thinking that this was indeed very contradictory. Are those people the Tao family's enemies? Perhaps the valuable things that the Tao family really wanted to give were not here. Was handing them over to the escort agency just a smokescreen? There was no problem with the wine. The 4 jars of wine were personally loaded into the carriage by the escorts after they examined them. Tao Feng had been to the bodyguard agency before, but he had never had the chance to come into contact with alcohol. Escort Wang also had a headache. Forget it. This has nothing to do with us. We just have to deliver the goods as soon as possible. We won't rest tonight. We'll travel through the night. As he spoke, he looked at Yundong, who had no objections. Everyone quickly tidied up the things. There was no more porridge to eat. Yundong felt that it was a pity. She could only take out her stock, including dried meat, fruits, and steamed buns. Everyone would eat them to fill their stomachs. The carriage sped up, but Yundong was in the carriage and looked at Shao Qingyuan curiously. What is it? When did you make that medicine? I've never heard of you studying medicine. This person knew how to hunt, practiced martial arts, and could read. He was already a rarely capable person in Yongfu village. Moreover, he had worked hard to make these. Yundong had always known that he was very good, but she had never heard of him dabbling in pharmaceuticals. Chapter 439, Hugging Again B0s and Vel. CM Shao Qingyuan smiled. I've never learned it. Huh? A question mark slowly appeared in Yundong's mind. Do you still remember the medical book you gave me? He was referring to the medical book that Yundong had copied from Song de Jiang. At that time, Yundong had given it to him so that he could read it and remember the herbs inside. If he saw the herbs in the mountains in the future, he would not miss them. At that time, Shao Qingyuan remembered the book after reading it once. It made Yundong feel defeated. After that, the book was left with him. In addition to the medicinal ingredients recorded in the book, there were also a few common formulas written at the end. I tried according to the words written on it and happened to make such a medicine to treat internal injuries. Later, I fed this medicine to the wild rabbit. There was no problem, so I took it to an old doctor in the county. After the old doctor saw it, he bought 2 small bottles. Yundong's mouth was wide open in disbelief. Wait, he made it just because he saw the formula. Moreover, the old doctor even bought the pills from him? What's wrong? Shao Qingyuan held her hand. Yundong suddenly pounced on him and hugged his waist with a happy smile on her face. Shao Qingyuan was stunned. Then, he wrapped his arms around her waist and pressed her tightly into his arms. His voice was low. Are you happy? Of course I'm happy. I'll ask Dr. Song later and get him to find some other medical books for you to read. I didn't know that your talent was here. Shao Qingyuan lowered his eyes slightly and looked at the top of her head with burning eyes. He did not know if he was talented or not. He only knew that while he had nothing to do in the past, he should not let this situation go. Since he was going to marry her, he had to make a career. In the future, they would have children. He had to plan for the future of raising his wife and children. He would not try to become a scholar. It had only been nearly 2 years since he started to read. In the past, he did not have the time to read in the Li family. It was only after the old man of the Li family died that he went out to find work and slowly learned. He practiced martial arts so that he could fight back and knock people down when others bullied him. At first, he had stayed in the mountains for too long and fought with many animals to train himself. Later, he trained with the escorts of the escort agency and had encountered people in the martial arts world who taught him a few moves. In the past, someone had advised him to join the army, but he did not have the intention to make contributions. Now, he would not go either. It was easy to join the army, but it would take years. If his wife was taken away by other men, he would not be able to find her. Because of this, Shao Qingyuan also spent a period of time anxiously until he saw the medical book. He did not want to be a pure doctor. He wanted to be a pharmaceutical merchant. If he became a big pharmaceutical merchant, not only would he be able to treat people, but he would also have power. The internal injury medicine this time was the first medicine he made. There would be more and more in the future. Yundong, he called her softly. Yundong was suddenly stunned. Was this the first time he had called her by her name? She felt her ears itch and some joy welled up in him. However, Shao Qingyuan hugged her even more tightly. If you can't find Bai Muzi when you go to Wanqing Prefecture this time, there's no need to be anxious. Perhaps we can use another medicine to treat Andy's illness. I'll work hard to read books and study medicinal herbs. Therefore, there are some things that you can let me help you share. Gu Yundong blinked and grabbed the hem of his shirt. After a long time, she said in a low voice, "Okay. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."